Chapter 2172. The strange place. While Zhuo Wen's name had shaken the entire star area, Zhuo Wen, the main character of the story, slowly woke up. The instant he opened his eyes, Zhuo Wen abruptly stood up. The muscles in his entire body tensed up as he released his divine sense to scan the surroundings. But very quickly, a wave of intense pain came from his mind, causing Zhuo Wen to involuntarily growl. The moment he retracted his soul consciousness, the pain disappeared. Shaking his head, he knew that he couldn't use his soul consciousness in this place. Once he did, his soul consciousness would hurt. Thinking of this, Zhuo Wen didn't want to release his soul consciousness. Instead, he used his naked eyes to scan his surroundings. He found that he was in a desolate continent. Moreover, this continent wasn't big. It was just a little bigger than an ordinary meteorite. Zhuo Wen found that the four edges of this continent were connected by thick chains. On the other side of the chains, there were clouds lingering. He couldn't see what was on the other side of the chains. Zhuo Wen patted his head. Currently, he was in the clone Devour's human body. After being sucked in by the black spiral, Devour didn't have enough energy to maintain his huge body, so he had to revert to his human form. Zhuo Wen waved his sleeve, summoning his real body, Di Ling, and Zhong Ziqing from his body. Where are we? Di Ling looked around and asked in surprise. Zhong Ziqing, Cao Tairan, and the other three looked at each other, their faces blank. This is the fault in the starry sky. According to the legends of the star domain, this fault in the starry sky is famous for being a dangerous place. Since ancient times, cultivators that have fallen into this fault in the starry sky have basically never been able to come out, said Zhuo Wen in a deep voice. Di Ling and the others fell into silence, their eyes filled with despair. Heaven will always leave a way out. Although this space fault is dangerous, I don't believe that we can't get out of here. However, Zhuo Wen wasn't dejected at all. Instead, he summoned a green vortex with his right hand and said, "You guys enter the Kanglan mystery realm to cultivate first. Leave the matter of finding a way out to me." King Spirit, Zhong Ziqing, and the others looked at each other, then bowed to Zhuo Wen and entered the Kanglan secret realm. Zhuo Wen allowed the black-clothed Zhuo Wen to enter as well. The black-clothed Zhuo Wen's injuries were extremely serious. If he didn't treat his injuries in time, it was very likely that his foundation would be endangered. After putting away the Kanglan secret realm, Zhuo Wen's gaze once again fell on this continent. Zhuo Wen stayed on this continent for half a month. In this half a month, he turned this continent upside down, but he didn't find anything. It could be said that this continent was completely barren. Nothing existed on it. Although Zhuo Wen did not give up and searched a few more times, the result was still the same. Disappointed, Zhuo Wen turned his attention to the chains connecting the four edges of the continent. In the depths of the chains, there were clouds and mist lingering. It was impossible to tell what was in the depths of the chains. Let's go to the east side first. Zhuo Wen hesitated for a while, then stepped onto the east side of the chain and slowly walked forward. Because there was no way to use one's divine sense in this place, Zhuo Wen could only rely on his eyes to determine what was in front of him. The clouds and mist were too thick, and Zhuo Wen's range of vision was only about 3 meters. After walking for about half an hour, Zhuo Wen slowly came to a stop. This was because he found a thick stone wall 5 meters in front of the chains. Zhuo Wen came in front of the stone wall and reached out his right hand to touch it. He found that the stone wall was a little soft, and when he touched it, the stone wall moved slightly. This made Zhuo Wen feel suspicious. Zhuo Wen did not act rashly. Instead, he retreated. Next, Zhuo Wen went to the south and north side of the chains. At the end of the chains, he encountered the same strange stone wall. Only the west side of the chain is left. I hope it won't disappoint me. Zhuo Wen nervously stepped onto the west side of the chain and slowly moved forward. He was very clear that if the end of the west side of the chain was also a stone wall, then there was really no way out and he was really trapped here. Although he thought of using violence to break the stone wall at the end of the chain, he felt that the stone wall was not simple, so he did not act rashly. Just as Zhuo Wen was thinking about random things, the clouds and mist in front of Zhuo Wen suddenly dispersed. Soon after, Zhuo Wen found that there was no longer a stone wall in front of him, but another continent. This continent was almost exactly the same as the previous one. It was desolate and uninhabited, and the edges were connected by chains. The clouds and mist were hazy, and he could not see what was at the end of the chains. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. He faintly had a guess, but he was not very sure if it was true or not. Using the previous method, he tried the remaining 3 directions of this continent and found the 3rd continent on the south side of the chain. However, when Zhuowen wanted to follow the original chain and return to the original location, he discovered that the strange stone wall had appeared in the chain between the 3rd and 2nd continents. Is there someone controlling this place? Zhuowen frowned slightly, but his heart sank to the bottom. He was very clear that if these gaps in the continents were controlled by someone, it was simply wishful thinking for him to want to leave this place. What he was curious about was, who was in control of everything here? Kid, since the person behind the scenes is controlling everything, then you should follow that person's lead and see where the person behind the scenes wants to lead you. Xiao He took the thunder fire sword out of the spirit ring and said to Zhuowen in a deep voice. Zhuowen nodded. He grabbed the thunder fire sword with one hand, but his gaze was extremely solemn. Xiao He had obtained the thunder fire sword and absorbed a lot of resources from Zhuowen. His cultivation had risen very quickly, and his strength was no weaker than an ordinary Void Sky 7th stage expert. Moreover, the thunder fire sword's quality had reached the peak of Void Sky Divine Artifact, and it was comparable to the Supreme Glorious Sunblade. If Xiao He had the opportunity, it was not impossible for it to evolve into a secondary Void Sky Divine Artifact. Following this, Zhuowen advanced step by step, holding the thunder fire sword, and crossed continents along the chain. Zhuowen shuttled through the maze-like continents for half a month before he finally arrived in front of a canyon. The canyon was very large, and there were no dense clouds lingering around it. On both sides of the canyon, there were not mountains, but mountains of bones. Upon closer inspection, one could see that the mountains of bones on both sides of the canyon were like the ribs of some ancient beasts, lifelike and lifelike. Standing at the entrance of the canyon, Zhuowen frowned slightly. He smelled something unusual in this canyon. This canyon is not simple. Before you enter, I think you'd better refine those 2 secondary Void Sky Divine Artifacts first, Xiao He suddenly said. Zhuowen nodded. He indeed had this intention. He was currently in the inner part of the starry sky fault. This was an unknown world, and no one knew what kind of dangers were lurking inside. Right now, increasing his own strength was naturally an urgent matter. Thinking of this, Zhuowen waved his sleeve and threw out more than a dozen formation discs, setting up a powerful defensive formation around him. Chapter 2173. 9 Extinction Divine Runic Sword. Now, these 2 powerful secondary heaven-shattering divine tools were dim on the surface, and didn't have the might they had at the beginning. The reason for this was mainly because their owners weren't here, and they were also imprisoned by Zhuowen's formation. Zhuowen was the first to release the runic sword. Su. The moment the runic sword was released, it pierced towards Zhuowen. It actually knew that Zhuowen was an enemy. Without Chen Changsheng's control, Zhuowen wasn't afraid of the runic sword at all. Zhuowen's right hand formed a claw and grabbed onto the runic sword. No matter how hard the runic sword struggled, it couldn't break free. Then, Zhuowen opened his mouth and spat out a blazing divine flame that enveloped the runic longsword. However, the runic sword was extremely extraordinary. The instant Zhuowen's divine flames enveloped the runic sword, the runic patterns on the sword's surface lit up. Then, the divine flames were actually dispersed by the runic patterns. You actually managed to disperse my divine flames? Zhuowen didn't believe it and spat out divine flames again. Moreover, he purposely strengthened the divine flames, but it still failed. Your main body's cultivation is only at the 5th step of the Void Sky realm. Your divine flames are too weak. Use the extreme flames, Xiao He reminded. Zhuowen nodded and summoned the black-robed Zhuowen. Borrowing the extreme flames, he once again enveloped the runic sword. This time, no matter how the runic sword struggled, it couldn't extinguish the extreme flames. Seeing this scene, Zhuowen's eyes lit up with joy. He hurriedly strengthened the extreme flames. The extreme flames were indeed powerful. Zhuowen only used 10 days to refine Zhuowen's imprint on the runic sword. At the same time, Zhuowen also engraved his own imprint on the runic sword. After successfully refining the runic sword, Zhuowen learned that the runic sword's name was Nine Extinction Divine Runic Sword. Using the extreme Dao flame, Zhuowen spent another 10 days to successfully refine Fu Yu's meteor hammer, which was called Space-Destroying Meteor. Generally speaking, using a secondary heaven-crushing divine tool required an enormous amount of divine power and divine sense. Even though Zhuowen's divine sense was extremely powerful, he could only use a secondary heaven-crushing divine tool once at most. Furthermore, he couldn't use his divine sense in this place, so Zhuowen could only circulate his divine power. Thus, even though he had refined both of these secondary heaven-crushing divine tools, he could only use one of them in battle. However, when Zhuowen's divine sense became powerful enough in the future, he would be able to control two heaven-crushing artifacts at the same time. Zhuowen was proficient in using swords, so he naturally chose to use the Nine Extinction Divine Rune Sword. Furthermore, due to the fact that divine sense could not be used here, the power of the Nine Extinction God Rune Sword would be greatly reduced. However, Zhuowen was not worried at all. If he were to encounter Fu Yu's or Chen Changxing here, those two fellows would definitely be weaker than him. After all, no matter how powerful those two old fellows were, their strength would be greatly reduced if they couldn't use their divine sense. Furthermore, their secondary heaven-crushing divine tools were in his hands, so Zhuowen was not afraid of those two old fellows. Putting away the space-destroying meteor, Zhuowen slowly walked towards the canyon with the Nine Extinction Divine Rune Sword in hand. Under the control of Xiao He, the Thunder Fire Sword floated beside Zhuowen, constantly vigilant of the surrounding dangers. After entering the canyon, Zhuowen discovered that the ground of the canyon was actually paved with piles of white bones. The white, flat ground was eerie and terrifying. The silence in the canyon was frightening. Zhuowen slowly walked forward, and he could only hear his own footsteps. This place was simply too quiet. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. When Zhuowen reached the center of the canyon, the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. Zhuowen fiercely did a somersault, and immediately saw that there were more than 10 arrows piercing the ground where he was originally standing. If he had been a step slower, he would have been hit by the arrows. Furthermore, Zhuowen discovered that although the arrows looked very ordinary, they actually pierced through the white bone ground with ease. This sharpness was a little too excessive. Zhuowen had tested the toughness of the white bone floor before. The Thunderfire Sword had needed to expend a lot of energy to pierce through the white bone floor. However, the Nine Extinction Divine Rune Sword in his hand was a secondary heaven-breaking divine weapon. Naturally, it could easily pierce through the white bone floor. However, how could an ordinary arrow be so sharp? Zhuowen really could not understand. Could it be that this arrow was a secondary heaven-crushing divine tool? However, Zhuowen did not feel any aura of a secondary heaven-crushing divine tool from the arrow. This arrow was just an ordinary weapon. However, Zhuowen did not have the time to think too much about it. Instead, he rolled on the ground again. This was because even more arrows were shot at him from both sides of the Bone Mountains. Zhuowen also discovered that there was a group of people on both sides of the Bone Mountains. This group of people attacked him as soon as they appeared, and Zhuowen was extremely angry in his heart. With a cold snort, he unfurled his torch dragon wings and was about to fly towards the group of people on the Bone Mountains. However, the moment he unfurled his torch dragon wings, he discovered that the torch dragon wings were rapidly dissipating. What's going on? Zhuowen's pupils shrank. Furthermore, he discovered that the divine energy in his body was actually gradually dissipating. More accurately, the divine energy in his body was being absorbed by the surrounding Bone Mountains. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Arrows were shot at him again. Zhuowen could only helplessly wave the Nine Extinction Divine Rune Sword in his hand. The sword light was like water, and the rain of arrows was completely blocked. I have to leave this canyon quickly. Zhuowen no longer paid any attention to the group of people who ambushed him from the Bone Mountains. Instead, he stomped his right foot and immediately ran back. However, Zhuowen soon discovered that an endless bone wall had appeared at the entrance of the valley at an unknown time. You can't get out. This is the king's territory. Since you've entered this place, there's no turning back. An indifferent voice came from both sides of the Bone Mountains. After that, Zhuowen discovered that the arrows were no longer shooting at him, and more than 10 figures appeared behind him. There were men and women among these people. Their clothes were extremely tattered, but Zhuowen could vaguely see that these people's clothes were definitely not ordinary. The leader was a cold and elegant woman. She sized up Zhuowen from head to toe, and her beautiful eyes revealed a look of surprise. She said, "Fifth step, Void Sky? I didn't expect that there would be such an expert who fell into the fault of the starry sky. No wonder you could dodge our arrow rain." Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. The cultivation of this group of people was not high. There were even true gods among them. The cold-looking woman in front of him was the highest, and her cultivation was only third step Void Sky. However, for some reason, when these people faced Zhuowen, they were not afraid at all. It was as if they did not care that Zhuowen's cultivation was higher than theirs. "Big Sister Shi Ping, what do you plan to do with this person? His cultivation is higher than ours. When the time comes for him to adapt to this place, I'm afraid he'll be quite a threat to you," a young man whispered to the cold-looking woman. Chapter 2174. Lin Shipingzhuowen frowned as he silently sized up the cold woman in front of him. He did not answer her directly. The cold woman's eyes grew colder as she said, "If you don't answer, don't blame us for taking action." As she spoke, the people behind her drew their bows and aimed their arrows at Zhuowen, ready to shoot at any time. Zhuowen looked at the arrows aimed at him with apprehension. He was sure that these arrows were definitely not heaven-piercing divine artifacts, or even divine artifacts. They were just ordinary weapons. However, this ordinary weapon was actually sharper than many Void Sky divine artifacts. Zhuowen could not figure out what was going on. He was sure that these arrows did not exist in the outside world, or he had never seen them before. "Everyone, let's talk nicely. I've just entered this place, so I don't know the rules yet. I hope everyone can tell me what this place is," Zhuowen said with a smile. The cold woman said indifferently, "You need to submit to me first. I'll tell you when the time comes." Zhuowen's eyes immediately turned cold. With his personality, it was naturally impossible for him to submit to others, not to mention that the other party was a woman. "Sorry, I'm used to being free and idle. I don't like to bow and scrape to others," Zhuowen said indifferently. As soon as these words came out, an intense killing intent enveloped Zhuowen. "Looks like you're refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit," the cold woman sneered. With a wave of her hand, the dozen people behind her drew their bows and were about to shoot arrows. A sword light suddenly flashed past as the cold woman pulled out a short knife and slashed behind her. Only then did she realize that a divine sword covered in lightning and fire was floating behind her. The group of subordinates behind the cold woman had their tendons cut off. They fell to the ground and screamed miserably. The cold woman's short knife slashed at the lightning and fire sword. Her jade feet felt weak and she could not help but take a few steps back. Her face was pale. Just as the cold-looking woman was about to exert her strength, a long sword engraved with runes landed on the woman's neck. The sharp sword chi left a fresh wound on her fair neck. "If you don't want to die, don't act rashly. Put down the dagger in your hand," Zhuowen said calmly. The cold and elegant woman put down her dagger and turned around, calmly looking at Zhuowen. "I really didn't expect you to be able to use your divine sense in this place. How did you do it?" Zhuowen shook his head and didn't say anything. Actually, he couldn't use his divine sense. The reason why the Thunderfire sword could attack from a distance was not because of his divine sense. It was completely under the control of Xiao He. Of course, he naturally wouldn't expose this matter. Since this woman misunderstood that he, Zhuowen, could use divine sense, then he would let her continue to misunderstand. "Tell me about this place," Zhuowen said calmly. The cold and elegant woman's beautiful eyes flickered. She sighed and said, "Let's go back to our territory first. This hunting bone mountain is full of danger. It's not safe here. You don't have to worry. Since you can use your divine sense, killing us is like squashing an ant. So you don't have to worry about me cheating." Hearing this, Zhuowen's eyes flickered, but he still let go of the cold and elegant woman. Although Zhuowen couldn't use his divine sense, he still had the absolute advantage with Xiao He. Boy, carry this dragon master on your back. This dragon master is about to die. The Thunderfire sword came to Zhuowen's side and transmitted a message to Zhuowen. What's going on? Could it be that you are also being suppressed in this canyon? Zhuowen took out a piece of cloth, tied the Thunderfire sword, and carried it on his back. Nonsense, this canyon is too strange. This dragon master's energy is also constantly collapsing. I can't continue to act recklessly. Otherwise, this dragon master will be exposed. Xiao He said. Zhuowen was speechless. This guy really couldn't be handsome for more than 3 seconds. Fortunately, the cold and elegant woman and others now thought that Zhuowen could use his divine sense. In addition, this cold and elegant woman's subordinates were restrained by the Thunderfire sword, so Zhuowen wasn't worried about the cold and elegant woman's suspicions. Although the cold and elegant woman was quite puzzled about Zhuowen carrying the Thunderfire sword on his back, she didn't care much. She reorganized more than 10 injured subordinates and simply bandaged their wounds. Let's go back now. I will tell you the details when we go back. The cold and elegant woman said to Zhuowen, and then walked straight into the depths of the canyon. As for the cold and elegant woman's subordinates, they all looked at Zhuowen in fear. They weren't afraid that Zhuowen's cultivation was higher than theirs. They were mainly afraid that Zhuowen could use his divine sense in this place. With his divine sense, it would be too easy for him to kill them. They weren't even on the same level. The cold and elegant woman was extremely cautious. When she was heading into the canyon, she tried her best to stay close to the surrounding bone mountains as cover. Obviously, this cold and elegant woman had more survival experience than Zhuowen. It was no wonder that she could become the leader of this group of people with her identity as a woman. Moreover, after interacting with her along the way, Zhuowen also knew that this woman's name was Lin Shipping. She was a disciple of the Half Moon Hall. Back then, when she was training, she accidentally fell into this starry skyfault and ended up in this strange canyon. The canyon was very long and narrow. After passing through the bone mountains, they came to a bone forest. Every bone tree was extremely long, as if it was connected to the heavens. Moreover, the bone forest was filled with a thick smell of blood. The moment they walked into the bone forest, Zhuowen realized that the ground under his feet wasn't soil, but flesh and blood. Zhuowen became even more vigilant. This place was too strange, and a trace of uneasiness rose in his heart. After about an hour, the cold and elegant woman led the group to a hidden cave. From the outside, this cave was actually the skull of a giant beast. Its bloody mouth was the entrance to the cave. Hurry up and go in. The cold and elegant woman looked around and hurriedly waved her hand. More than 10 people hurriedly entered the cave, like birds startled by the twang of a bow. When Zhuowen saw the cold and elegant woman and the others being so cautious, he was extremely puzzled. Along the way, although there were many strange things, they didn't seem to have encountered any threats. Why were they so vigilant, and even a little frightened? Lin Shipping observed Zhuowen's expression and naturally saw the puzzled look on his face. She said in a low voice, "You're new here, so you don't know how scary this place is. I'll tell you later. For now, come in first." Zhuowen nodded and entered the cave. The moment Zhuowen stepped into the cave, Lin Shipping formed a seal with her hands. Immediately, an invisible ripple appeared at the entrance of the cave. Only then did Zhuowen notice that there were more than 10 palm-sized beast bones placed at the entrance of the cave. These beast bones emitted a lustrous white light and actually formed a simple defensive array. What a strange energy. It's actually much more magical than the array discs outside. Chapter 2175. The Bone World. Zhuowen came to the front of the formation. Just as he was about to extend his right hand, Lin Shipping grabbed it. "What do you want?" Lin Shipping looked at Zhuowen nervously. "This beast bone is really strange. I want to see it. Also, your formation is too simple and crude." "It's a waste of the beast bone," Zhuowen said calmly. Lin Shipping blushed. She was the one who set up the formation. Now that Zhuowen said it was useless, she was naturally flustered and exasperated. Among us, I'm the only one who knows a little about formations. It's already good enough that I can set up such a formation. In this bone forest, there are many small tribes that live in the open. Not to mention, they have formations to protect them, Lin Shipping said unhappily. Zhuowen's expression changed. There were indeed many cultivators here. I know a little about formations. This defensive formation is too crude. I'll help you set it up again, Zhuowen said calmly. Lin Shipping looked at Zhuowen from head to toe. Her beautiful eyes were filled with doubt. You're a god formation master? Yes. If I can't do it, you can set it up again, Zhuowen said with a smile. Lin Shipping nodded. Although she didn't really believe Zhuowen's formation skills, she didn't dare to offend him too much when she thought of what he had just done. After getting Lin Shipping's agreement, Zhuowen came to the entrance of the cave. He quickly pointed his right hand and formed a seal. Lin Shipping was shocked to find that the defensive formation she had painstakingly set up was broken by Zhuowen in an instant. This guy is really a god formation master. Lin Shipping was stunned at first. Then, her beautiful eyes lit up with joy. Lin Shipping had stayed in this world for a long time. In this world, formations were much more important and powerful than a person's strength. With formations, one could definitely obtain the best resources in this world. Cultivators from other tribes would also come here to seek protection and increase the strength of their tribes. The strength of a formation actually represented the strength of one's force. In this world, as long as one had a powerful formation, one could quickly accumulate a powerful force. It was completely different from the outside world. What the outside world saw was not the formation, but the high-end strength. The stronger the cultivator, the more the number of cultivators, and the stronger the force. Of course, the protective formation was also indispensable, but it was not as important as it was in this world. Zhuowen's array Dao standard had already reached the terrifying 7th level. Fiddling with array formations was simply too easy. It only took him 15 minutes to slightly modify the foundation of Lin Shipping's formation. The defensive formation, which was originally only a level 2, transformed into a level 3 formation. Due to the uniqueness of the beast bones, the level 3 formation he set up was far more powerful than a level 3 formation set up by an ordinary formation disc. Its power was close to that of a level 4 formation. This made Zhuowen click his tongue in wonder. He was a little excited about the beast bones. He knew very well that the beast bones could increase the power of formations. As long as he used the beast bones to set up formations in the future, the power would definitely be much stronger than the ones he had set up before. Of course, with Zhuowen's current level 7 formation master skills, it was naturally possible for him to set up a level 7 defensive formation. However, Lin Shipping had too few beast bones. There were only a dozen of them, and they were too simple. With Zhuowen's skills, he could barely set up a level 3 formation. If there were more beast bones, or if the beast bones were more powerful, he would be able to set up a more powerful formation. It should be known that the formation discs in Zhuowen's spirit ring were extremely complicated. There were formation discs made up of thousands of formation flags. However, these beast bones were too simple. One beast bone was equivalent to one formation flag at most. If Zhuowen had hundreds or thousands of beast bones, he could use the beast bones to make formation discs. By then, Zhuowen would be able to set up a higher level formation. Moreover, the formation's power would be much stronger than the formation set up by the ordinary formation discs he had. What level of formation master are you? After modifying the formation, Zhuowen turned around and saw Lin Shipping's passionate gaze and question. I'm a level 5 formation master. Zhuowen did not plan to tell the truth. This world was too foreign to him. Lin Shipping might not be trustworthy. Therefore, he naturally could not reveal his background. You're a level 5 formation master? Lin Shipping's beautiful eyes were filled with joy. She hurriedly bowed to Zhuowen respectfully and said, Senior, Shipping has offended you. Please don't take offense. As she spoke, Lin Shipping looked at Zhuowen anxiously and said in a low voice, Senior, can you stay in our tribe? Although there aren't many people in our tribe, as long as you stay in our tribe, we will definitely be able to develop into a large tribe in the future. Moreover, We will follow your lead. Zhuowen frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, I'm new here. Can you tell me what this place is first? Previously, you said that this is the territory of the king. What's that about? Senior, look at my memory. I almost forgot that you're new here. Actually, it's like this. Lin Shipping slapped her forehead. Ever since she knew that Zhuowen was a level 5 formation master, Lin Shipping was extremely enthusiastic. Obviously, she really wanted Zhuowen to stay in their tribe. Lin Shipping explained in detail and Zhuowen listened attentively. After a while, Zhuowen had a rough understanding of the situation here. This was the inner part of the Starry Sky Fault. Anything that fell into the Starry Sky Fault would enter this world. The cultivators who left this world here called it the Skeleton World. This name was indeed very suitable for the scenery here. Basically, all the scenery here was formed by skeletons. The entrance to the Skeleton World was the entrance to the valley with mountains of skeletons on both sides. Once one entered the valley, one would truly step into the Skeleton World. Moreover, once one entered the Skeleton World, one would not be able to leave. In other words, the moment one stepped into the Skeleton World, the entrance to the Skeleton World would be permanently sealed. There was no way out at all. Of course, when Lin Shipping explained the Skeleton World, Zhuowen asked what would happen if one did not enter the Skeleton World and stayed outside the valley. Lin Shipping's beautiful eyes were filled with fear. She said that the cultivators who did not enter the Skeleton World would become skeletons within a month and become the scenery of the Skeleton World. There were many cultivators who were left behind in the Starry Sky Fault in the Skeleton World. In the Starry Sky Fault, cultivators could not use their divine sense. Once they used it, they would have a splitting headache. If they used it recklessly, their divine sense would collapse and they would die. In the beginning, many people died because of this. Later on, cultivators who entered this place did not dare to use their divine sense. After entering the Skeleton World, the divine power in the cultivator's body would gradually disappear. Just like Zhuowen's current state. Although his divine power was strong, there was always a devouring force coming from the depths of the ground under his feet, devouring Zhuowen's divine power. According to this devouring speed, Zhuowen knew that it would not be long before the divine power in his body completely disappeared. Of course, it was not that he was crippled. It was just that his divine power was completely devoured. As long as he left this strange skeleton world to the outside world and absorbed enough starry sky energy, his divine power would naturally recover slowly. Chapter 2176. King. The skeleton world was not big, and the most scarce thing here was shelter. Lin Shipping and the others lived much better than most people in the skeleton world. At least they had a cave to shelter them from the wind, rain, and wild beasts. Most people lived in the open. Once they encountered danger, they might not even know how they died. There were natural disasters and man-made disasters in the skeleton world. The so-called natural disasters were the bad weather here. The wind and rain in this world had a strong power to corrode flesh and blood. It was called the bloody wind and rain by the people here. The cultivators who lived in the outside world would be easily corroded by the wind and rain in the skeleton world, turning them into skeletons. Only the caves formed by the skeletons of the giant beasts in the skeleton world could withstand the bloody wind and rain and protect the lives of the people in the caves. Moreover, the caves in the skeleton world were very scarce. Therefore, many desperados would attack the weaker tribes nearby with caves without caring about their lives. This was a man-made disaster. After listening to Lin Shipping's description, Zhuowen had a general understanding of the skeleton world. You mentioned the king's territory before. This skeleton world is the king's territory you mentioned, right? Then what is the king? Zhuowen asked. The king is the king of the skeleton world. I have never seen the king, but I can clearly feel the king's existence. I also know that the king has been observing us. Lin Shipping said. Zhuowen, on the other hand, was baffled. Lin Shipping's words were baffling. Who exactly was the king? She didn't even explain it clearly. You still have divine power in your body, so you can't feel it. The moment your divine power completely dissipates in the skeleton world, you will be able to feel the king's aura. The king is omnipresent. We can't go against him at all. Lin Shipping said in a low voice, but Zhuowen was even more confused. Is there no exit to the skeleton world? Zhuowen asked. Lin Shipping looked at Zhuowen strangely and shook her head. You think too much. Since ancient times, no one has ever left the skeleton world successfully. There is no exit here. Zhuowen frowned and said coldly, then how can I meet the king you speak of? Lin Shipping sighed, it's almost impossible to meet the king. Only the chief of the Bone Halberd tribe, the largest tribe in the bone world, can contact the king. However, the Bone Halberd tribe is a forbidden area in the bone world. Ordinary people can't enter at all. Zhuowen's eyes lit up. He had a feeling that the king mentioned by Lin Shipping was definitely the key to leaving the skeleton world. He couldn't stay in the skeleton world for the rest of his life. He still had a lot of things to do. By the way, where did you get the animal bones to set up the formation? Zhuowen asked. Oh, we got them by hunting the undead here. Every undead has one or even several of these animal bones with special energy. The effect of using these animal bones to set up the formation is much better than the formation flags in the outside world, Lin Shipping said. Zhuowen nodded and his eyes flickered. He planned to go to the Bone Halberd tribe this time. Of course, he wouldn't give up on the animal bones. Such a good material for setting up the formation, the more the better for Zhuowen. If he had the chance to leave the skeleton world in the future, even if he wasn't a level 8 formation master, he could set up a level 8 formation with the formation discs made from these animal bones. Let's feel the breath of the king that Lin Shipping calls first. Zhuowen found a place in the cave and sat down with his legs crossed. He closed his eyes and waited for the divine power in his body to disappear completely. With the speed at which his divine power was disappearing, it should be completely gone in 3 days. At that time, he wanted to feel what kind of existence the so-called king was. Lin Shipping also guessed Zhuowen's plan, so she tactfully didn't disturb Zhuowen. As for Lin Shipping's subordinates, their right hands were badly injured and they were busy recovering. Naturally, they didn't dare to disturb Zhuowen. 3 days later, the last trace of divine power in Zhuowen's body disappeared completely. Then, a black mist rose from under Zhuowen's feet and immediately enveloped Zhuowen. This person is going to be baptized by the king. Lin Shipping and the others knelt on the ground and shivered. Inside the black mist, when the last beam of divine power disappeared from Zhuowen's body, Zhuowen felt a strange force covering him. Then, a pair of scarlet eyes appeared in his head. This pair of eyes was too big. Just one of them was much bigger than an ordinary life-bearing planet. Zhuowen lifted his head, gazing at the pair of scarlet eyes. His face was as calm as an ancient well. He said faintly, "Are you the king of the skeleton world?" The scarlet eyes looked at Zhuowen indifferently, talking in a vague voice, "You. Not. Devour. Are you? Devour's clone?" Zhuowen's face changed. He gazed at the pair of scarlet eyes. He didn't expect that this guy knew about Devour. "Did you purposely suck us into the space vault?" Zhuowen's expression was ugly. When the black spiral had mysteriously appeared in the space vault, Zhuowen had felt that something was wrong. Moreover, when the suction force of the black spiral had increased, he had heard a terrifying beast roar. He was afraid that this so-called king was behind all of this. "If you want to get out, come to the corpse heavenly road." As soon as the scarlet eyes finished speaking, they slowly dissipated. Zhuowen abruptly opened his eyes, and the black mist around him also completely dissipated. Zhuowen then realized that his forehead was covered in cold sweat. The aura of the pair of scarlet eyes was so intimidating that even Zhuowen felt intimidated. What a familiar aura. The owner of those eyes is definitely Devour. Moreover, it's not an ordinary Devour. Zhuowen's eyes darkened. At the moment he sensed the aura of those scarlet eyes, Zhuowen knew that the so-called king of the skeleton world was Devour. Moreover, this Devour was much stronger than the sky-devouring demon emperor that Zhuowen had met. It wasn't an ordinary Devour. "I can only go to the corpse heavenly road to find that guy." Zhuowen frowned. Although he was sure that the king of the skeleton world was Devour, he still felt that this so-called king wasn't simple. However, He didn't have a choice. If he wanted to get out, he had to find that so-called king. Miss Shiping, do you know where the corpse heavenly road is? Zhuowen turned around, looking at Lin Shiping, who was bewildered. Chapter 2177. A storm of blood. I think the Bone Halberd tribe allows outsiders to join, right? What are the conditions for joining the tribe? Zhuowen asked calmly. Lin Shiping looked at Zhuowen strangely and said, the conditions for joining the Bone Halberd tribe are very strict. You have to contribute 300 pieces of beast bones, and they have to be at least mid-grade. In the bone plane, beast bones are the life-saving items for cultivators. Generally speaking, cultivators who live in the wilderness would need beast bones to set up magic arrays. Only then would they be able to survive outside. Beast bones are very hard to come by. You should know that the combat prowess of the undead creatures is very terrifying. Our small tribe has been living here for tens of years, but we have only managed to obtain over 30 pieces of beast bones. Some smaller tribes only have a few pieces of beast bones, and they can only set up level 1 formations. We are in a precarious situation. Where can we get 300 mid-grade beast bones? Although the Bone Halberd tribe is powerful and secure, not everyone is qualified to enter the tribe. Senior, although you are a god formation master, it will be very difficult for you to gather so many beast bones. Zhuowen was startled. He didn't expect the beast bones to be so difficult to get. Lin Shiping's tone showed that. Just as Zhuowen was about to speak again, a muffled sound of thunder came from outside. Streaks of blood-red lightning appeared in the sky outside. They streaked across the sky and dyed the entire sky red. Oh no, a storm of blood is coming to the bone world again. Some of our companions are still outside. We have to call them back. A tall and thin man's expression changed slightly. Lin Shiping's expression changed drastically. She said in a low voice, "Who went out? Why didn't they tell me?" The tall and thin man shrunk his neck and said, "It's a Xin and Xiao Yu. They saw that the tribe's food was running out, so they wanted to go out and try their luck. After the divine power of the bone world disappeared, cultivators were like mortals. They needed to eat and drink to replenish their energy. Some bone trees in the bone world would occasionally grow meat that could be eaten. The cultivators living in the bone world basically picked the meat from the bone trees and stored it as food. Damn it, all of you stay here. I'll go out and look for them. A storm of blood is coming. If a Xin and Xiao Yu don't come back in time, they will both die." Lin Shiping said as she got up and rushed out of the cave. "I'll go with you." Zhuowen also got up. Lin Shiping said, "Thank you, Senior." After Lin Shiping dispelled the formation at the entrance of the cave, she instructed everyone in the cave not to wander around before disappearing into the forest of bones ahead with Zhuowen. Not long after Zhuowen and Lin Shiping left, 2 figures walked out shakily from the bone forest. They were shipping, they were shipping and ice shipping translations. It's a Xin and Xiao Yu. Inside the cave, everyone was overjoyed when they saw the man and woman walking over. However, they did not notice the numbness on their faces. When a Xin and Xiao Yu walked to the entrance of the cave, no one was suspicious. The tall and thin man moved the animal bones inside and opened the formation at the entrance. Although the formation was set up by Zhuowen, it was very simple to open it. He only needed to move the specific animal bones. Moreover, it could only be opened from the inside. Most of the people in the cave knew how to open the formation. However, the moment the tall and thin man opened the formation, a whistling sound was heard. Then, an extremely fast arrow pierced through the tall and thin man's forehead. Originally, the tall and thin man wanted to close the formation, but the arrow pierced through his forehead and killed him in one shot. The moment the tall and thin man died, everyone in the cave was stunned. It was because of their shock that more arrows were shot at them, followed by a series of screams. As for the man and woman called a Xin and Xiao Yu, they had already rolled to the side the moment the first arrow was shot. It was as if they knew that there would be arrows coming from behind them. They managed to avoid the arrow attack without any danger. Rustle, rustle, rustle. When the first round of arrows stopped, more than 20 figures rushed out of the bone halberd and quickly rushed over. A man who had been stabbed in the chest and was close to the entrance of the cave saw more than 20 figures rushing in from outside the cave. His eyes were filled with hatred. He stretched out his right hand and grabbed the animal bone that was being moved by the lanky man, intending to close the grand formation. Unfortunately, the moment his hand came into contact with the animal bone, a saber light flashed past and his hand was chopped off. The man raised his head and looked at Ashin in disbelief. He spat out a mouthful of blood and endured the pain. Ashin, why did you do this? Ashin's eyes were cold. I'm sorry, I was forced to do this. In order to survive, I had to listen to them. With that, Ashin raised his blade and the man quickly lost his life. Haha. Good, you've done well. Among the 20 people rushing over, the leader was a burly man with a full beard. He patted Ashin's shoulder and could not help but laugh. Ashin and Xiao Yu quickly bowed. They were overwhelmed by the favor and repeatedly said that they did not dare. Hida, you schemed against our tribe. Why? Our tribe has never interfered with each other's business. Why did you do this? One of the older men was shot in the legs and fell to the ground. He looked at the burly man with a full beard with resentment. Interfered with each other's business? I want to ask you, our tribe is obviously much stronger than yours, so why can you enjoy this cave while we can only eat and sleep in the open and live in fear? The burly man called. Hida sneered. He did not argue with the old man. Instead, he ordered his subordinates. Tie them all up. I want to see what kind of expression that bitch Lin Shipping will have when she comes back. In the dense bone forest, Lin Shipping and Zhuoan quickly flashed. After all, Lin Shipping had lived here for dozens of years. Although she no longer had her divine power, she had obviously practiced the body refining technique and was very agile. As for Zhuo Wen, there was no need to even mention him. His mysterious yellow immortality had already been cultivated to the pinnacle, and his skills were even more powerful than Lin Shipping's. However, in this place, no matter how strong one's body was, it was useless because the weapons here were generally very sharp. Even if Zhuowen's body had reached the heaven and earth immortality level, he knew that the weapons of the bone world could cut a huge wound on his body. If they stabbed a vital part, it would be fatal. Boom! A huge blood lightning flashed across the sky. Then, Zhuowen saw large patches of blood clouds gathering in the sky as if a blood rain was brewing. A storm of blood is about to descend. We have to return. Lin Shipping looked at the sky. Although her beautiful eyes were full of reluctance, there was nothing she could do. She gritted her teeth and led Zhuowen back the way they came. After a while, the two of them returned to the skull cave. Open the array, Lin Shipping said. Chapter 2178. Betrayal. Hida. Why are you in my tribe? Where are my people? Lin Shipping saw a burly man with a full beard standing at the entrance of the cave with a single glance, and her pretty face changed greatly. Hida grinned and clapped his hands lightly. The subordinates behind him brought out all of Lin Shipping's people. Lin Shipping originally had 15 or 16 people, but Hida's men only brought out 5 or 6 people. Moreover, all of them were riddled with injuries. Where are the others? Lin Shipping asked angrily. Chief Lin, the others were killed by Hida's men. Shin and Xiao Yu betrayed us. They were the ones who led Hida's men here. We opened the cave's array, a young woman said with a sobbing tone. Lin Shipping then realized that Shin and Xiao Yu had their heads lowered in Hida's group, not daring to look her in the eyes. You too. I risked the possibility of being corroded by a storm of blood just to find you. You two actually betrayed our tribe. You. Lin Shipping's almond eyes widened in anger. Her chest heaved up and down. It was obvious that she was furious. Haha. Commander Lin, a wise man submits to circumstances. How about this? If you surrender without a fight, I promise I won't kill you. In fact, I'll even take you as my concubine. How about that? As Hida spoke, his gaze impudently sized up Lin Shipping's body. He didn't care about the latter's anger. I'm going to kill you, Lin Shipping shouted. Her jade-like feet kicked off the ground. Like a vigorous cheetah, she suddenly charged toward the cave. Boom! Lin Shipping's jade-like hand held a dagger. She instantly slammed it in front of the cave. Her expression changed drastically. An invisible ripple appeared at the entrance of the cave. A terrifying repulsive force blasted out. Lin Shipping let out a muffled groan. She spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. Zhuowen leaped up and placed his right hand on Lin Shipping's back to stabilize her falling body. Haha, your tribe's defensive formation is really useful. It's actually so powerful. Looks like Commander Lin's formation skills have improved. He sneered. He ignored Zhuowen, who was standing behind Lin Shipping. He stared at Lin Shipping and continued, "My patience is limited. Hurry up and make your decision. Moreover, the bloody storm is coming. If you don't want to die outside, then be my concubine." Lin Shipping completely ignored He and hurriedly turned around. She looked at Zhuowen and said, "Senior, I beg of you. Help me. Only you can help me now." Lin Shipping recalled the scene of Zhuowen using the Thunder Fire Sword. She knew that although He and the others had a large number of people, they were nothing more than ants to this mysterious senior who could use his divine sense. Zhuowen was quite helpless. He knew that Lin Shipping had misunderstood him. He couldn't help but curse Xiao Hei several times in his heart. He could only maintain his master's demeanor. He nodded and said, "Leave it to me." Lin Shipping's beautiful eyes lit up with joy. She quickly bowed and said, "Thank you, senior." Zhuowen nodded. He still maintained his master's demeanor. Inside the cave, He's gaze finally fell on Zhuowen. He coldly said, "Boy, do you really want to die? Shin, what's this boy's background?" Although He spoke ruthlessly, he still vigilantly asked Shin behind him. Shin had a puzzled look. When Lin Shipping's group met Zhuowen, they weren't with them. Later, when the group returned, they didn't ask much. The next day, they went out to look for food, so they really didn't know anything about Zhuowen. "Senior Hida, I don't know this person. He should be a nobody." Shin shook his head. Hida's mouth was full of a sneer. He said, pretending to be mysterious, "A bloody storm will soon come. This Hida can enjoy the scene of you two turning into skeletons in the bloody storm." Zhuowen's eyes were calm. He slowly walked to the entrance of the cave and stretched out his right hand. His 5 fingers quickly pointed. Immediately, the invisible ripples at the entrance of the cave began to surge. Immediately, Zhuowen's right hand, under everyone's gaze, suddenly reached in and grabbed Hida's collar. Hida couldn't help but fall towards Zhuowen. "You're courting death." Hida's reaction wasn't slow. He shouted and pulled out a large saber from his waist with his right hand. He directly slashed at Zhuowen's neck. But soon, Hida discovered that his saber was blocked by the defensive array at the entrance of the cave. The invisible ripples continued to spread, and Hida's head was pulled out of the array by Zhuowen. Then, Zhuowen released his hand. Hida's head was stuck outside the array, and the rest of his body was still inside the array. Zhuowen was a level 7 divine array master. In addition, the array at the entrance of the cave was personally modified by him. It could be said that breaking the array was a piece of cake for him. Using the array to trap Hida was also a piece of cake. You. Hida's eyes were filled with fear. He still hadn't realized how the white-clothed youth in front of him trapped his head outside the array. "Boss, we'll get you out of here." Behind Hida, there were a few loyal lackeys. They immediately grabbed Hida's legs and forcefully pulled Hida back. "Bastard, let go of my legs. Are you trying to pull my head off?" Hida kicked away the loyal subordinate with a kick. His face was flushed red because he was holding his breath. At this moment, Zhuowen came in front of Hida and said to Lin Shipping, "You can do whatever you want with this person." Lin Shipping's beautiful eyes were red. She only had 5 subordinates left after Hida killed them. In her heart, she wanted to cut Hida into pieces. "You guys, quickly open the array, quickly." Hida sensed Lin Shipping's killing intent and hurriedly roared. Hida's subordinates hurriedly came to the entrance of the cave and began to move the beast bones to open the array. However, they found that the method they used to open the array didn't work at all. "Boss, we can't open it." One of the subordinates trembled with fear. "Trash. Hida kicked the subordinate away and said in exasperation, "Don't waste your energy. I've already modified the array. You can't open it." Zhuowen said indifferently. "Hida, our tribe didn't interfere with each other's business. However, you killed my people for no reason. Today, I'll make you pay with your blood." Lin Shipping took out a short knife and slit Hida's neck. Hida wanted to say something, but he couldn't say anything. The sharp blade of the short knife had completely cut his throat. Blood spurted out. Hida waited for Lin Shipping with all his might. Finally, he breathed his last. Naturally, Zhuowen would not show mercy. Inside the cave, Xin and Xiao Yu trembled. The two of them knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Lin Shipping. "Sister Lin, we did not intend to betray you. That Hida forced us. If we did not agree, Hida would have killed us," Xin hurriedly explained. Xiao Yu curled up beside Xin and lowered her head, sobbing softly. Lin Shipping was somewhat dispirited. She looked at Xin and Xiao Yu kneeling on the ground and said with a bitter smile, "Then did you kill our companions unintentionally? Was it also unintentional when you instigated Hida's men to kill us?" Xin froze in the middle of kowtowing. He scrambled over to Lin Shipping's feet and sobbed, "Sister Lin, please let me live." Lin Shipping waved her hand and said, "You guys can leave. Whether you can survive in this bloody storm will depend on your luck." Xin's movements stiffened. He raised his head and opened his mouth, but he did not say anything in the end. Instead, he silently helped Xiao Yu up and resolutely left the cave. Rumble. At this moment, a bolt of crimson lightning streaked across the sky outside. Afterwards, a rain of blood began to fall along with a foul wind. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and looked outside the cave. He saw that Xin and Xiao Yu, who had not gone very far, were gradually disintegrated by the rain of blood. In the end, they were reduced to two sets of skeletons that collapsed in the rain of blood. The bolt of crimson lightning streaked across the sky again. Zhuowen could clearly see the two sets of skeletons fusing into the white bone ground under the rain of blood. "Is this the bloody storm?" Zhuowen looked at this scene in shock. This bloody storm was too powerful and strange. Two living people were reduced to two sets of skeletons in an instant. At the same time, the black-clothed Zhuowen, who was originally in the Kanglan secret realm, suddenly opened his eyes. He was unable to calm his emotions. "The black-clothed man is actually restless," Zhuowen frowned slightly. He had no choice but to summon the Kanglan secret realm. The black-clothed Zhuowen appeared from the green vortex and immediately rushed out of the cave. "Senior, was that your friend just now?" Lin Shipping saw the scene just now and was completely stunned. Zhuowen did not answer. Instead, he silently sensed the black-clothed Zhuowen's emotions. Outside, the black-clothed Zhuowen was not afraid of the corrosion of the rain of blood. Instead, he was extremely enjoying flying through the rain of blood. Moreover, Zhuowen found that the black-clothed Zhuowen was absorbing the energy of the rain of blood to heal his wounds. In the battle with Fu Yuz and Chen Changsheng, Devour had been severely wounded. After entering this place, he couldn't use his soul consciousness. Of course, Zhuowen couldn't take out the heavenly star essence. He could only let Devour recover on his own. According to Zhuowen's estimation, Devour would need half a year to 1 year to recover completely. However, Zhuowen was surprised to see that the black-clothed Zhuowen's wounds were healing rapidly while he was bathing in the bloody storm. At this speed, he would need around half a day to be completely healed. This bloody storm doesn't affect him at all. Are my eyes deceiving me? Lin Shipping soon found that the black-clothed Zhuowen was still alive and kicking in the rain of blood. He wasn't affected at all. "Haha, this is my clone. He's cultivated a powerful body refining technique. That's why he can resist the erosion of the blood rain," Zhuowen chuckled. Lin Shipping nodded. She was smart enough not to ask more. Even though she knew that Zhuowen's words were full of loopholes, she didn't dare to voice them out. She understood clearly that this harmless-looking young man in front of her had a lot of secrets that she couldn't see through. Moreover, If this man wanted to kill her, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. Zhuowen stood at the entrance of the cave, clasping his hands behind his back. He felt that the black-clothed Zhuowen's body was getting better and better. He was in a good mood. At the same time, he found that this place had severely suppressed his god power, but it didn't affect Devour at all. In other words, with Devour, Zhuowen could cover the sky with one hand in this skeleton world. At that time, Devour's wounds were so severe that he had to stay in the Kanglan secret territory to heal himself. Thus, Zhuowen didn't notice that this place didn't suppress Devour at all. As Devour got out, he found that this skeleton world was Devour's paradise. With Devour, I don't even need to put the Bone Halberd tribe in my eyes. There's also Fu Yu's and Chen Changsheng, I must find them. Zhuowen thought to himself. At the same time, he felt that the king of the skeleton world could be from Devour's clan. Perhaps, he had a deep relationship with Devour. After half a day of the blood rain, Devour's wounds were finally healed. He leaped up and returned to the cave entrance, landing by Zhuowen. Miss Lin, are you interested in going to the Bone Halberd tribe with me? Chapter 2180. Dark Spirit Bone Forest. Lin Shipping was stunned. She looked at the white-clothed Zhuowen and Zhuowen's doppelganger and nodded vigorously. I'll follow you to the Bone Halberd tribe, but you know the rules of the Bone Halberd tribe, it's fine. Once I collect 300 pieces of beast bones, I'll be able to bring a few people from your tribe into the Bone Halberd tribe. Zhuowen smiled. Lin Shipping said worriedly, Senior, beast bones aren't that easy to get. Lin Shipping originally wanted to say that although Zhuowen was strong and knew a little about formations, it wouldn't be easy for him to collect 300 pieces of beast bones. Miss Lin, can you tell me where the necromancy gathering place is? I might be able to deal with that necromancy. Zhuowen said with a smile. Lin Shipping hesitated for a moment, then nodded. There are many necromancy gathering places in the bone world. The closest one to us is the Dark Spirit Bone Forest. Bring me there. Zhuowen nodded. After settling the remaining 5 people, Zhuowen set up a defensive formation in the cave and left with Lin Shipping. After the bloody storm, Zhuowen discovered that the originally empty bone trees were now filled with pieces of bright-colored flesh. As they walked through the bone forest, Lin Shipping casually plucked many pieces of meat and put them into a special leather bag. After every bloody storm, new pieces of meat will grow in the bone forest. These pieces of meat are extremely fresh and contain high nutrition and energy. Lin Shipping explained as she plucked a piece of meat. Zhuowen nodded and followed Lin Shipping to pluck the meat. The two of them only stopped when their leather bags couldn't hold any more. Of course, the two of them weren't the only ones who came out to pluck the meat. The cultivators of the nearby tribes also came out after avoiding the bloody storm and excitedly plucked the meat. Let's move on, Lin Shipping said. She ignored the other cultivators and led Zhuowen into the depths of the forest. The two of them flew for about 2 hours and arrived at the deepest part of the Bonewood Forest. The Dark Spirit Bone Forest was located at the core of the Bone Forest, and the most fundamental difference between the Dark Spirit Bone Forest and the ordinary Bone Forest was that the bone trees in the Dark Spirit Bone Forest were pitch black, while the ordinary Bone Forest was pure white. This place is very dangerous. Generally speaking, when the cultivators from the Bonewood Forest come here to hunt for undead creatures, most of them would wait outside the Dark Spirit Bonewood Forest for a lone undead creature to appear before swarming forward. Additionally, the external bones of undead creatures are tough and they possess extraordinary strength. They are very difficult to kill. Thus, killing undead creatures is very difficult, explained Lin Shipping. Zhuowen nodded and said, then let's wait here for now. I can also see what the undead look like. As they spoke, the two of them stood beside a bone tree and waited silently. This time, Zhuowen's luck was not bad. A roar came from the Dark Spirit Bone Forest, and soon after, a 3-meter-tall figure slowly walked over. Zhuowen focused his gaze and discovered that the figure was covered in black bone skin, with its skull exposed. It was basically a skull. The beast bone is hidden in the heart of this undead creature. We must cut off its head for it to be completely dead. Otherwise, there will be no effect at all. Lin Shipping said in a deep voice. I know. Now, Let me test how hard the outer shell of this undead creature is. Zhuowen nodded and suddenly took a big stride forward, sweeping towards the front of the undead creature. The undead creature felt the aura of a human and immediately cried out in excitement. It immediately rushed towards Zhuowen. Although the walking speed of the undead creature was extremely slow, the speed of its attack was extremely fast. In almost the blink of an eye, the undead creature swept in front of Zhuowen. A large palm the size of a palm leaf fan unceremoniously whistled towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen drew a short knife in his hand. This short knife was given to him by Lin Shipping. In Lin Shipping's tribe, everyone used this kind of short knife. He didn't want to use the 9 Extinction Divine Rune Sword, so he took a short knife to defend himself. Bang! The short knife fiercely chopped at the undead creature's large hand. Immediately, Zhuowen discovered that the undead creature's strength was far greater than his, and he couldn't help but take a few steps back. The undead creature was very agile. The moment Zhuowen retreated, it took a step to arrive in front of Zhuowen. Its 2 palms were like rain, mercilessly waving towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy. He didn't have any divine power left, so he could only rely on his physical strength. However, he discovered that the undead creature's physical strength wasn't much weaker than his. This made his heart thump and sink to the bottom. "Senior, you're too impulsive. This undead creature isn't something that can be dealt with by one person." Lin Shipping's pretty face changed greatly. Her jade-like feet stomped, and like a vigorous leopard, she violently rushed over. The moment she rushed out, she drew the short knife at her waist and accurately pierced it into the undead creature's back. Clang! The tip of the knife pierced the undead creature's back, bursting with dazzling sparks. The sharp knife actually only blasted a small hole in the undead creature's back. Bang! The undead creature fiercely swung its hand. Lin Shipping used the knife to block, but with a muffled groan, she was blasted back by the huge force. "Hey! There are 2 people fighting the undead creature over there. They're simply courting death. Just the 2 of them dare to fight the undead creature. They really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. You must know that more than 10 elites of our tribe paid a great price to finally take down an undead creature. The 2 of them are simply courting death." The sound of Zhuowen and Lin Shipping fighting the undead creature was quite loud, so it naturally attracted the attention of other cultivators who had come out to forage for food. These people gathered around, but they didn't have any intention of helping. Instead, they looked at all this with ridicule, as if they were waiting for Zhuowen and Lin Shipping to be killed by the undead creature. At this moment, Lin Shipping really had an unspeakable bitterness. With Lin Shipping's rich experience, it was absolutely impossible for her to recklessly rely on the 2 of them to deal with the undead. However, out of trust in Zhuowen, Lin Shipping thought that Zhuowen should be able to easily deal with the undead, so she didn't explain some things to take note of in advance. In her opinion, Zhuowen was more than enough to deal with the undead. Who knew that the development of the situation was beyond her expectations? On the contrary, Zhuowen was being suppressed by the undead creature, and she was retreating step by step. She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. "Senior, hurry up and make a move. Otherwise, we'll all die," Lin Shipping couldn't help but say to Zhuowen. Now Lin Shipping could only place her hopes on Zhuowen. Zhuowen was extremely calm. He had been observing the undead's attack methods and weaknesses. Now that he heard Lin Shipping's words, he no longer held back and released his clone, the black-clothed Zhuowen. As soon as the black-clothed Zhuowen appeared, he threw a punch at the undead creature's head. The undead creature originally wanted to dodge, but the black-clothed Zhuowen caught it off guard and was too fast, so it couldn't dodge at all. Boom! The undead creature's head was sent flying by the punch. It fell to the ground and rolled a few times before coming to a stop. The undead creature's huge body also fell to the ground, dead as a doornail. Chapter 2181. Python Tribe. What great strength, to actually blow off the Revenant's head with one punch. Many of the onlookers were discussing animatedly, like a boiling pot. Although the Revenant's head was its weakness, its toughness was only slightly weaker than its body. Wanting to cut off the Revenant's head with one strike was very difficult, usually requiring several strikes. But this black-clothed youth who suddenly appeared, with just one punch, blew off the revenant's head. What kind of strength did this require? Lin Shipping could not help but be stunned. She did not expect that this black-clothed youth's strength would be so great, to be able to blow the revenant's head away with just one punch. Miss Lin, how do we retrieve the beast bone? Zhuowen turned to look at Lin Shipping and asked. Lin Shipping finally reacted, hurrying in front of the revenant. She stabbed the revenant's chest several times with her dagger, only then was she able to make a small hole in the bones of the revenant's chest. Zhuowen discovered that the place where Lin Shipping stabbed was exactly hollow, and a few inches below that place, there was a piece of beast bone lying quietly. Zhuowen also discovered that the quality of this beast bone was much higher than the dozens of beast bones in Lin Shipping's tribe. Senior, this is a mid-grade beast bone. This beast bone has a much better luster than the low-grade beast bones in our tribe, and its energy is also much richer than the low-grade beast bones. Lin Shipping said in surprise. Zhuowen nodded, took the beast bone and observed it for a while, then threw it to Lin Shipping and said, I'll leave this beast bone to you for safekeeping. Let's enter the dark spirit bone forest now. After confirming that the black-clothed Zhuowen's battle prowess was not affected by the bone world, and Zhuowen also understood the revenant's characteristics, Zhuowen no longer hesitated. He planned to bring the black-clothed Zhuowen directly into the dark spirit bone forest. It's a mid-tier beast bone, which is very rare. The three of you, hand it over. Suddenly, a group of 30 people walked over and surrounded Zhuowen and Lin Shipping. It's the Python tribe. We can't afford to offend them. These three can only obediently hand over the mid-tier beast bones. Many of the surrounding onlookers were discussing animatedly. Their gazes towards this group of people were filled with fear and reverence. Senior, they are the Python tribe. They are one of the strongest tribes in the Bonewood Forest. There are close to 100 of them. What should we do? Lin Shipping trembled as she looked at Zhuowen. The Python tribe was many times stronger than Lin Shipping's own tribe. The moment Lin Shipping saw the Python tribe, he lost all will to resist. The weapons of this group were extremely exquisite. Every one of them was tall and strong. Their leader, in particular, was half-naked. His body was engraved with complex patterns, and his eyes flashed fiercely. Zhuowen looked at the naked man and said indifferently, You want our mid-tier beast bones? The naked man said impatiently, I asked you to hand it over, so you have to hand it over. Why are you still dawdling here? Do you want to die? You should know that we are the Python tribe. A small tribe like yours can't afford to offend us. Senior, we shouldn't get into a conflict with the Python tribe. The Python tribe is the local snake of the Bonewood Forest. If we offend the Python tribe, we won't have a good time. Lin Shipping hurriedly said. Zhuowen waved his hand and looked directly at the naked man, saying, Hand over your beast bones. If you don't, you will regret it. As soon as these words came out, the surrounding crowd was stunned. They all looked at Zhuowen strangely. It was the Python tribe that was robbing them. How could this young man who was being robbed turn the tables? Was there something wrong with this young man's brain? Haha. How dare you blackmail us? After so many years, you are the first. To reward you, I will treat you specially. The naked man was so angry that he laughed. His right hand pulled out a crescent-shaped machete from his waist. He took a step forward and quickly swept in front of Zhuowen. With a slight twist of his wrist, he quickly slashed 4 times at Zhuowen's limbs. The naked man was much more agile than Lin Shipping. The crowd only saw a shadow before the naked man appeared in front of Zhuowen. The machete was already aimed at Zhuowen's limbs. Obviously, he planned to cripple Zhuowen on the spot. Unfortunately, no matter how fast the naked man was, there was one person faster than him. This person was the black-clothed Zhuowen who was standing not far from Zhuowen. The black-clothed Zhuowen's right hand suddenly reached out and grabbed the machete in the naked man's hand. He then exerted force and the machete broke. Poochie. The naked man's face changed. Just as he was about to retreat, Zhuowen made his move. The machete in his hand quickly slashed 4 times. Immediately, the naked man's limbs were sent flying. Fresh blood spurted out. Ah! The naked man screamed and fell to the ground. The scene was extremely tragic. I didn't want to cause trouble, but if trouble comes knocking, I, Zhuowen, am not afraid. I will take it one by one. As Zhuowen spoke, he took the leather pouch from the naked man's waist. He found that there were more than 20 pieces of beast bones in the pouch. Every piece was a mid-grade beast bone. Many thanks for your beast bones. Zhuowen tossed the leather pouch and brought Lin Shipping into the dark spirit bone forest. Although Lin Shipping was shocked, she felt that it was reasonable. After all, she knew that Zhuowen's doppelganger was not ordinary. After all, to be able to survive the bloody storm, how simple could this person be? What are you all standing there for? Kill this person, kill him. The naked man was on the verge of breaking down. He could not help but shout and shout. His limbs were broken. In this place where he could not use his divine power, his limbs could not be recovered. He could be said to be completely crippled. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, the fate of a cripple was very tragic. My lord, they have entered the dark spirit bone forest. There are too many dead spirits inside. We do not dare to go in, a subordinate quickly said. The naked man roared, then chase after them. Go in and kill that bastard for me. My lord, you do not have the right to order us now. A man in bone armor walked out from the group of 30 people and stepped on the naked man's chest. Moreover, this person can cripple my lord in an instant. That means that even if we go in, we will not be of any help. My lord, do you think we will seek our own deaths? The bone-armored man laughed mockingly. Bone dust, you dare to talk to me like that? You are courting death. The naked man angrily said. The bone-armored man named Bone Dust slowly pulled out a large knife and laughed. My lord, I am sorry. The Python tribe does not need a cripple. Moreover, you lost more than 20 mid-grade beast bones. If I do not kill you, how can I explain it to the chief? You! How dare you? What are you all standing there for? Bone Dust wants to kill me. Everyone stop him. The naked man panicked and hurriedly said to the rest. Unfortunately, these former subordinates looked at him coldly and did not have any intention to stop him. The naked man laughed bitterly. He knew that he was dead for sure. In the dark spirit bone forest, Zhuowen and Lin Shipping silently moved forward. They naturally did not know what happened outside the forest. Now, Zhuowen's main goal was to collect more beast bones. Chapter 2182. Extermination. It could be said that the number of beast bones Zhuowen needed was not just 300, but much more. Moreover, Zhuowen also learned from Lin Shipping that the quality of beast bones was divided into 4 grades: low, medium, high, and top. Among them, the most common were the low-grade beast bones, which were obtained from relatively weak undead creatures. The undead that Zhuowen and Lin Shipping encountered before was not weak, so they were able to obtain medium-grade beast bones. Senior, we can't go any deeper. The deeper we go, the more undead there will be. We won't be able to handle it. Lin Shipping cautiously glanced around, her delicate body trembling. She couldn't help but whisper to Zhuowen. Zhuowen didn't pay attention to her at all, but indifferently said, if you're afraid, you can leave the dark spirit bone forest now. Lin Shipping shrunk her neck, remembering that the people of the Python tribe were still outside. How could she dare to go out alone? Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, a vigorous figure swept over from the surroundings of the bone forest. Immediately, Zhuowen discovered that more than 10 green eyes appeared out of thin air, each of them filled with greed and savagery. Not good, it's the wolf-type undead. Wolves are pack animals, so when these undead appear, there will be a lot of them. Lin Shipping couldn't help but cry out in alarm. Just as she said this, even more green eyes appeared from the surroundings of the bone forest, densely packed. There were at least 50 to 60 of them. Awoo! Dense howls sounded, and immediately, the wolf-type undead in the surrounding forest swarmed over, opening their bloody mouths, mercilessly pouncing towards Zhuowen and Lin Shipping. Unfortunately, the moment these numerous wolf-type undead approached Zhuowen, the black-clothed Zhuowen clenched his right hand, and suddenly, a purplish-black thunderbolt burst out from his palm. The speed of the thunderbolt was extremely fast, not inferior to the speed of light. The purplish-black thunderbolt flashed in the air, and then the 50 to 60 wolf-type undead creatures that were pouncing towards them were blown into nothingness by the thunderbolt, all of them falling to the ground. Lin Shipping, who was originally standing behind him, prepared to die, was completely stunned. She clearly saw the purplish-black thunderbolt flash out from the black-clothed Zhuowen's hand, and then the thunderbolt flashed in the surroundings, extinguishing all the ferocious wolf-type undead creatures in the surroundings. Your divine power didn't disappear? How is that possible? In the bone world, the king would never allow you to have divine power. Lin Shipping and Lin Shipping and Lin Shipping could not help but widen her eyes. Shipping, shipping, and shipping. Maybe my luck is shipping. Zhuo Wen said perfunctorily. Only he knew that Devour wasn't using god power, but the power of the extreme path. In the bone world, the divine power of a cultivator was completely suppressed and absorbed. However, this clone of his was Devour. Devour's power was not suppressed in the bone world, but strengthened instead. Moreover, there was a big difference between shipping and divine power. Although divine power was suppressed in this place, it did not mean that shipping's power was also suppressed here. Although Zhuowen's real body was suppressed here, Zhuowen's Devour's power was not reduced, but increased instead. With the current power of Zhuowen's clone, he could directly attack the Bone Halberd tribe. However, Zhuowen did not think it was that simple. He always felt that this place was not ordinary. Moreover, when he had sensed the pair of scarlet eyes in his head, he could feel the helplessness in those eyes, as well as the eagerness to take Zhuowen to the corpse heavenly road. This was also the reason why Zhuowen did not act impulsively when he knew that Devour's power was not suppressed. After all, the king of the bone world made Zhuowen very afraid. If he acted recklessly, he was afraid that he would be targeted by the king, or even angered. However, this was not what Zhuowen wanted to see. He just wanted to know how to leave this place. Lin Shipping naturally heard the perfunctory tone in Zhuowen's voice, but she did not say more. Instead, she began to dig out the beast bones from the dead souls. The beast bones of these 50 to 60 wolf-type undead souls were of high quality, basically reaching the level of mid-grade beast bones, which surprised Zhuowen. Then, Zhuowen and Lin Shipping continued to go deeper, encountering more and more undead souls. However, no matter how strong the undead souls were, they were not a match for the black-clothed Zhuowen. Lin Shipping, who was following behind Zhuowen, was more and more surprised. This Zhuowen was too abnormal. Logically speaking, the deeper they went into the dark spirit bone forest, the stronger the undead souls were. However, no matter how strong the undead souls were, they were all defeated by the black-clothed young man. Lin Shipping and Zhuowen's leather bags were quickly filled. This time, the two of them did not only obtain mid-grade beast bones, but also high-grade beast bones. The two of them counted and found that there were 500 mid-grade beast bones and 60 high-grade beast bones. With the black-clothed Zhuowen's strength, he could naturally continue to hunt the undead souls, but their leather bags could not hold any more. Although Zhuowen had the Kanglan secret realm and Devour had the inner world, for some unknown reason, neither the Kanglan secret realm nor the inner world could contain the items of this world. In other words, the items of the bone world were rejected by the Kanglan secret realm and the inner world. Only a unique inner world like the bone world could contain the items of the bone world. Although Zhuowen wanted to go deeper and get more animal bones, the cowhide pouch could no longer hold them all. The two of them had no choice but to return home. After taking the animal bones from the cowhide pouch, they would return a few more times. Walking out of the dark spirit bone forest, the two of them realized that the sky had darkened. The people who had gathered in the dark spirit bone forest were long gone. Let's go back first, Lin Shipping suggested. Zhuowen nodded, and the two of them went back the way they came from. However, when the two of them returned to the cave, they were stunned. They saw that their tribe's skull cave had been reduced to dust, and the remaining 5 tribe members were lying in a pool of blood. No. Who did this? Lin Shipping's delicate body trembled, and tears flowed out of her eyes. She came to the ruined cave and looked at the 5 corpses. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He looked around and found a line of bloody words in the ruins of the cave, The things of the Python tribe are not so easy to take, and the people are not so easy to kill. Since you've killed people and taken their things, then come to the Python tribe and ask for forgiveness." Lin Shipping also noticed the bloody words, and her beautiful eyes were filled with hatred. Although her tribe had suffered heavy losses after Ah Shin's betrayal, at least they were not completely wiped out. Chapter 2183. Wu Jinlong Sr., help me take revenge. I know you have the ability, Shi Ping is willing to do anything for you. Lin Shipping knelt down in front of Zhuo Wen, kowtowing loudly and shouting herself hoarse. Zhuo Wen helped Lin Shipping up and said, "Don't worry, even if you didn't say anything, I will seek justice for your tribe. Now, bring me to the Python tribe." Lin Shipping wiped away her tears and led Zhuo Wen to the east. Night fell. In the skeleton world, it was especially cold and gloomy. In the dense bone forest, one could see the light of fire from time to time. Many tribes nearby had built bonfires, roasted meat and danced, celebrating that they had survived the day. The Python tribe was one of the local leaders of the bone forest. It was located in the empty land in the east. There were 4 huge skull caves in the tribe, and each skull cave was several times bigger than Lin Shipping's cave. In front of the bonfire, the chief of the Python tribe, Wu Jinlong, sat on a chair made of bones. On both sides of him were beautiful maids, holding plates and standing respectfully. In front of Wu Jinlong, the man in bone clothes knelt on one knee, looking extremely nervous. Lin Shipping and that strange man still haven't left the dark spirit bone forest. Wu Jinlong was a dwarf old man. His eyes were extremely small, and his upper body was bare. His skin was so dry that one could see the protruding ribs on his chest. It could be said that this old man looked even worse than old Wu Qing. Although Wu Jinlong's appearance was not flattering, in the Python tribe, his prestige was not small. From the nervous expression of the man in bone clothes, one could tell that Wu Jinlong meant what he said in the Python tribe. "Yes, Chief. It's dark now, and I think those 2 must have died in the dark spirit bone forest, so I called my brothers back. But before I came back, I destroyed that bitch's tribe." The man in bone clothes said carefully, "Millimeter, I'll give you half a month's time. If you can't get them back, you can come to me with your head in your hands," Wu Jinlong said indifferently. The bone-clothed man's complexion changed slightly. One had to know that they would be extremely thankful if they were able to obtain even 1 mid-grade beast bone in a month. Now, the chief had directly asked him to collect more than 20 mid-grade beast bones in half a month. This was an impossible task. However, the bone-robed man didn't dare to refute. He knew very well that he couldn't disobey the old man in front of him. Once he did, he would be dead for sure. Understood. The bone-clothed man nodded. "You may leave." Wu Jinlong raised his head and enjoyed the clothes of the 2 maids behind him. Bang bang. All of a sudden, 2 sounds of air being torn apart could be heard as they blasted towards Wu Jinlong. Wu Jinlong abruptly opened his eyes. Although the old man was short, he was extremely agile and dodged the 2 whooshing sounds that pierced through the air. After Wu Jinlong landed on the ground, his expression turned ugly as he discovered that the 2 figures who had rushed over were members of their Python tribe. "Who is it?" Wu Jinlong suppressed his anger and asked. In front of the bonfire, 2 indistinct figures slowly walked over. It was a man and a woman. This man and woman were none other than Zhuoan and Lin Shipping who had rushed over. "It's you too." The bone-clothed man recognized Zhuoan and Lin Shipping and hurriedly whispered a few words in Wu Jinlong's ear. The latter also knew the 2's identity. Entering the dark spirit bone forest and not dying, the 2 of you are quite lucky. Are you here today to offer a humble apology? Wu Jinlong said coldly. Who destroyed our tribe's cave and killed our tribesmen? Hand over the culprit. Zhuoan said indifferently. The bone-clothed man sneered. Who do you think you are? The moment you arrive, you are so arrogant and want us to hand over the culprit. You are simply courting death. Wu Jinlong stared coldly at Zhuoan and said, Where did you get the courage to come to our Python tribe? If you know what's good for you, kneel down, crawl over here and beg for mercy. Perhaps I will leave your corpse intact. Wu Jinlong had just finished speaking when the black-clothed Zhuowen, who was hiding in the dark, flicked his finger. A bolt of lightning shot out and landed on Wu Jinlong's legs. The lightning bolt flashed past and Wu Jinlong's legs below his knees turned into nothingness. Wu Jinlong fell to the ground in an extremely sorry state. "You want to leave my corpse intact, but I don't want to leave yours intact," Zhuowen said indifferently. Wu Jinlong's broken legs were too strange. The tribesmen of the Python tribe all picked up their weapons and stared murderously at Zhuowen. "What did you do to me? You bastard!" Wu Jinlong was flustered and exasperated, but a trace of fear rose in his heart. "Hand over the culprit and I can spare your lives," Zhuowen said with a frown. "Kill him. Kill this son of a bitch." Although Wu Jinlong was extremely frightened by his broken legs, he knew that it must have something to do with this young man in front of him. He immediately ordered the tribesmen to hack this young man to death. Unfortunately, the moment the tribesmen of the Python tribe rushed towards Zhuowen, they were blocked by a lightning wall. The terrifying lightning blasted all of them into charred corpses. In the blink of an eye, 70% of the tribesmen of the Python tribe were killed by the lightning wall. The rest of the tribesmen screamed and fled in all directions. Unfortunately, their speed could not be faster than the lightning. Under the attack of the lightning, they were all turned into charred corpses. "Since you guys don't know what's good for you, you'll have to drink a forfeit," Zhuowen said indifferently, and his eyes fell on the bone-clothed man and Wu Jinlong, who were stunned on the spot. Under the attack just now, all the tribesmen of the Python tribe were dead, and only the two of them were left. That's a divine ability. How is that possible? How can you use a divine ability in the bone world? The bone-clothed man's eyes were filled with fear and he immediately ran away. "Don't kill me. The one who led the tribesmen to destroy your tribe was this bone powder. It was this guy who killed you. It has nothing to do with me." Wu Jinlong immediately distanced himself from the bone powder. Zhuowen was too terrifying. He killed all the tribesmen of the Python tribe in an instant. They were not on the same level at all. It was simply a one-sided massacre. The bone-clothed man ran even faster. Unfortunately, before he could escape far, he was chased by a bolt of lightning and was killed. Zhuowen searched the cave of the Python tribe and found nearly 100 beast bones. Although the tribe had set up many formations, it was a pity that in Zhuowen's eyes, these formations were too crude and could be broken at any time. "Let's go." Putting away the beast bones, Zhuowen left the Python tribe with Lin shipping. In the huge Python tribe, only Wu Jinlong was left. He was alone in the sea of blood and mountains of corpses, constantly struggling. Zhuowen didn't kill Wu Jinlong, but it wasn't much different from killing him. In this dangerous bone forest, Wu Jinlong's legs were broken, which meant that he was half crippled. He couldn't take care of himself, so he couldn't live for long. Zhuowen and Lin shipping found a relatively clean space. Zhuowen took out 50 beast bones and set up a level 5 defensive formation in a 10 radius. Then, he sat cross-legged on the ground. Since the real body couldn't use its power in the bone world, Zhuowen had put it in the Kanglan secret territory and let the black-clothed Zhuowen take care of things. The reason why he did this was that the black-clothed Zhuowen's real body, Devour, could obtain many benefits in the bone world. Chapter 2184. The girl in the blood-red skirt. In the next 3 days, Zhuowen and Lin shipping went to the dark spirit bone forest a few more times and obtained a lot of middle-grade and high-grade beast bones. Among them, Zhuowen gave the middle-grade beast bones to Lin shipping for safekeeping, while the high-grade beast bones were kept by Zhuowen himself. Since the internal world and the Kanglan secret territory couldn't store the beast bones, and Zhuowen had a lot of them, Zhuowen planned to use the beast bones to refine the array discs first. He knew that once the beast bones were refined into array discs, they would be stained with his aura. Things that didn't belong to the bone world could be stored in the bone world. After collecting enough beast bones, Zhuowen went into seclusion for 10 days in the temporary camp. Although he couldn't use his soul consciousness and god power, Zhuowen could use Devour's extreme flame and the technique of the divine formation master to refine the beast bones into a formation disc. Zhuowen used the 9 9s to 1 method, which meant that he fused 81 high-grade beast bones to form an array disc. He had a lot of high-grade beast bones, which was enough for Zhuowen to refine more than 10 array discs. However, Zhuowen didn't refine all of the high-grade beast bones into array discs. He only refined 9 array discs, which he named beast bone array discs. After the 9 array discs were refined, Zhuowen used a special method to carve the array patterns on the 9 array discs. These array patterns were the core of the array discs. There were many kinds of array patterns, including offensive array patterns, defensive array patterns, illusion array patterns, and so on. With these array patterns, the array discs only needed to chant the incantation to arrange different kinds of arrays in an instant. The beast bone array discs were definitely the most powerful array discs Zhuowen had ever seen, and also the most useful array discs. When he was carving the array patterns, he could clearly feel that the power of the array patterns had been greatly enhanced by the beast bones. With these 9 beast bone array discs, Zhuowen could instantly set up a powerful level 7 grand array. Moreover, it would be at the peak of level 7 grand array. Even in the outside world, it was extremely terrifying and rare to see someone who could instantly set up a peak grade 7 great array. In the bone world, where most of the cultivators could not use their divine power, Zhuowen felt that it would be difficult for anyone to withstand the power of a level 7 array. After refining the 9 beast bone array discs, Zhuowen spent another 10 days to refine another 9 beast bone array discs. These 9 beast bone array discs were used as backups. After all, as the array disc was continuously used, its energy would be constantly consumed, and it would eventually be completely scrapped. There was also the possibility that it would encounter a powerful attack and be damaged. Therefore, array discs always needed backup. This was Zhuowen's experience over the years. Inside his spirit ring, there were quite a few formation discs. However, the best formation disc in his spiritual ring was far inferior to this beast bone formation disc. Moreover, after refining the beast bone array discs, Zhuowen realized that Devour's inner world no longer rejected them. Thus, he stored the array discs in his inner world. At the same time, he also refined most of the middle-grade beast bones into beast bone array discs and stored them all in his inner world. He only kept about 500 middle-grade beast bones, which he planned to use in the Bone Halberd tribe. Let's go to the Bone Halberd tribe. Miss Lin, you lead the way. Zhuowen stood up, waved his sleeve, and opened the array around them. He then spoke to Lin Shipping, who was sitting cross-legged not far from him. Lin Shipping quickly nodded, and then led Zhuowen away from this place. The two of them passed through the Bone Forest, Bone Mountain, Plain, and Graveyard. After walking for 10 days, they finally arrived at the Bone Halberd tribe. The Bone Halberd tribe was located in the hinterland of the Bone Mountain range. The mountain range overlapped, and the blood mist lingered, revealing a strange aura. Zhuowen was sharp enough to realize that the blood mist outside the mountain range should have been arranged by someone. He could see the traces of an array in the blood mist. Someone must have arranged a restriction in the blood mist, and it was likely to be some kind of spying array. Once they entered the blood mist, they would be under the spying eyes of the person who had arranged the array. The Bone Halberd tribe is located in the hinterland of the mountain range. Ordinary people don't know its exact location. We can only find the mountain guard, Lin Shipping explained. Soon after, she arrived before a stone tablet that stood in front of the mountain range. This stone tablet glowed with a bright red color, and there were no words on it. Lin Shipping took out a low-grade beast bone and placed it in the groove in the middle of the stone tablet. Then, the groove corroded and swallowed the beast bone. Thump! Thump! After the beast bone was swallowed by the stone tablet, the sound of footsteps came from the blood mist in front of them. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and found that the one walking out of the blood mist was a girl in a blood-red dress. The girl's lips were as red as blood, and her beautiful eyes flashed with a scarlet light. Her body had a wild and strange beauty. Are you here to join the Bone Halberd tribe? The girl in the blood-red dress looked at Zhuowen and Lin Shipping with her beautiful eyes, and asked with a bell-like laugh. Yes. Lin Shipping cupped her hands and said. The girl in the blood-red dress spread her jade-like hands and said with a murderous intent, you know the rules, right? 300 mid-grade beast bones, and I can recommend you two to join the Bone Halberd tribe. Of course, if you can't take it out, don't leave here today. Lin Shipping said she didn't dare, and then carefully untied the leather bag at her waist and handed it to the girl in the blood-red dress, saying, "My lady, there are 300 mid-grade beast bones in here. Please check them." The girl in the blood-red dress took the leather bag, opened it and looked at it for a while. Then, she carried it on her shoulder and said lightly, "Yes, there are indeed 300 mid-grade beast bones. Now, follow me." After saying that, the girl in the blood-red dress entered the blood mist. Lin Shipping and Zhuowen quickly followed, and their figures soon disappeared in the blood mist. The girl in the blood-red dress led Zhuowen and Lin Shipping across the Bone Mountains. After walking for about half a day, they arrived in front of a huge valley. On both sides of the valley, there were tall and majestic bone mountains that reached into the sky. The blood mist here had long disappeared, and Zhuowen could clearly see the scene in the valley. In the valley, buildings made of strange beast skulls were densely arranged, layer upon layer, and row upon row. Between these bone buildings, there was an endless stream of people. It could be said that the population in the valley was definitely the largest that Zhuowen had seen in the skeleton world. The Python tribe was considered to be densely populated in the bone forest, but compared to this valley, it paled in comparison. It was not even worth mentioning. At the entrance of the valley, two big men with bone halberds were guarding. When the two big men saw the girl in the blood-red dress, they both showed respect and bowed slightly to the girl. "You two wait here, I need to go to the tribe to ask for instructions." Chapter 2185. Yu Xiaohui. The two burly men crossed their bone halberds and blocked Zhuowen and Lin Shipping. Zhuowen and Lin Shipping did not have to wait for long before the girl in the blood-red dress walked out of the valley. Behind her was a middle-aged man with a green pattern on his face. The middle-aged man wore a bone hat and held a bone staff. His eyes were narrow and cold. Obviously, he was not a friendly person. The middle-aged man sized up Zhuowen and Lin Shipping. Soon after, he raised the bone staff in his hand. Soon after, Zhuowen saw that the small skull at the top of the bone staff was actually emitting a green glow. The green light enveloped Zhuowen and Lin Shipping, and Zhuowen felt like he was being watched. Zhuowen was surprised. The green light had the aura of divine power. This man could use divine power. Wasn't it said that divine power could not be used in the bone world? Although Zhuowen had many secrets, his spirit ring had been taken by the black-clothed Zhuowen and brought into the Kanglan secret territory. The Kanglan secret territory was an independent small world. It was impossible for the middle-aged man to find out about the Kanglan secret territory with the green light. The green light repeatedly scanned the two of them before withdrawing. The middle-aged man said with deep meaning, "Not bad, not bad." Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. He knew what the middle-aged man meant. The middle-aged man must have found out about the 200 mid-grade beast bones in his body. Zhuowen had obtained thousands of beast bones. He had refined all the high-grade beast bones into array discs, and some mid-grade beast bones into array discs. He only had about 500 beast bones left. Lin Shipping had more than 300 beast bones. After giving them to the girl in the blood-red dress, they still had about 200 mid-grade beast bones. "Old Dao, are they okay?" The girl in the blood-red dress asked the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man called Elder Dao shook his head and said, "No problem. Bring them in." The girl nodded. Then she said to Zhuowen and Lin Shipping, "Come with me. I'll arrange a place for you to stay." Old Dao frowned slightly as he watched Zhuowen and Lin Shipping leave. He took another look at Zhuowen's back. He had a feeling that this person was not simple. Previously, when he used the green light to investigate this kid, he actually felt his heart palpitate. It was as if there was a terrifying strange beast inside this kid's body that was staring at him. "Maybe it's just my imagination." Old Dao shook his head and left the entrance of the valley. Along the way, Zhuowen discovered that the Bone Halberd tribe was indeed bustling with noise and excitement. Although there were many people here, they were in an orderly manner. Many of the people walking on the road were chatting and laughing, appearing joyous and harmonious. Without a doubt, compared to the outside world, The Bone Halberd tribe's environment was like heaven and hell. The people in the outside world were all deceitful and deceitful. Even the people in the tribe did not trust each other. It was impossible to see a smile on anyone's face outside. On the contrary, in the Bone Halberd tribe, one could hear laughter from time to time. It was as if the people here did not doubt each other or deceive each other. Is this the Bone Halberd tribe? Lin Shipping's beautiful eyes were filled with excitement. She also felt the atmosphere inside. She had never experienced such an atmosphere since she entered the bone world. Yes. This is the Bone Halberd tribe. It's a big family. Now that you've joined the Bone Halberd tribe, you'll be part of this big family from now on. The girl in the blood-red dress, who was leading the way, turned around. Her beautiful eyes were no longer as cold as before. Instead, they were filled with enthusiasm. She smiled and continued, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Yu Xiaohui. I'm the guardian of the Bone Halberd mountain range. I'm Lin Shipping. His Zhuowen. Big brother Zhuo. Miss you, you scared me at first. I thought the Bone Halberd tribe was the same as the outside world, a place where people talk with their fists. Now that I think about it, I've misjudged you. Lin Shipping said uneasily. Yu Xiaohui did not care at all. She said, Miss Lin, you probably don't know that the Bone Halberd tribe is the largest tribe in the bone world. There are many people who want to join the tribe. However, the Bone Halberd tribe is only so big. How can it fit everyone in the bone world? Only friends who sincerely want to join our Bone Halberd tribe will be treated as family. However, if they are our enemies, we will punish them severely. We will not be nice to them. Lin Shipping nodded to show that she understood. This is your residence. Oh right, everything here needs to be purchased, and beast bones are the currency in circulation here. If you lack anything, you can tell me, and I'll take you to buy what you need. Yu Xiaohui took Zhuowen and Lin Shipping to the east of the Bone Halberd tribe. There was a small, remote skull cave. She said a few words and then planned to leave. Miss you, wait. Zhuowen stopped Yu Xiaohui. The latter stopped and looked at Zhuowen in surprise. She asked, Brother Zhuo, what's the matter? Zhuowen walked forward, took out a mid-quality beast bone and handed it to Yu Xiaohui. He said in a low voice, Can I ask you a few questions? Yu Xiaohui's beautiful eyes brightened. She put away the mid-quality beast bone naturally and smiled. Brother Zhuo, just ask. As long as I know, I will tell you everything. Zhuowen said in a low voice, Where does the chief of the Bone Halberd tribe live? And can your chief really communicate with the king of the bone world? Yu Xiaohui looked Zhuowen up and down, but still explained, As for the chief, he lives in the chief's hall in the center of the tribe. Moreover, he does have the ability to communicate with the king, and he also has extraordinary strength. It is said that the king gave him this ability. Then can we really meet the king at the end of the Corpse Heaven Road? Zhuowen's tone became serious as he asked. Yu Xiaohui raised her beautiful eyes and said, Why do you ask this? Do you want to go to the Corpse Heaven Road? I'm warning you that the Corpse Heaven Road is a forbidden area of the tribe. The chief has never opened it to others. Zhuowen waved his hand and said with a smile, I'm afraid Miss Yu has misunderstood. I don't have a long life. People die on the Corpse Heaven Road. I've always been curious about the Corpse Heaven Road and the king. Now that I've come to the Bone Halberd tribe, I naturally want to ask more. Yu Xiaohui curled her lips and said, I'm not sure if we can meet the king, but there should be some basis for it. Because the king did appear once on the Corpse Heaven Road. That's why there are rumors that you can meet the king at the end of the Corpse Heaven Road. I see. Thank you, Miss Yu. Zhuowen nodded and clasped his hands at Yu Xiaohui. Then, he turned and entered the skull cave arranged by Yu Xiaohui. However, when Zhuowen turned around, he didn't see the faint smile on Yu Xiaohui's face. She stuck out her small red tongue and licked her blood-red lips as if she had seen her favorite food. Entering the skull cave, Lin Shipping was already tidying up inside. Seeing Zhuowen come in, Lin Shipping's pretty face blushed. She said embarrassedly, Big brother Zhuo, this cave is a little small, so there's only one bed inside. Before, Lin Shipping had always called Zhuowen Senior. Later, Zhuowen asked her to change it to Big Brother Zhuo. Chapter 2186. Illusion Array. Brother Zhuo, what's wrong? Did something happen? Lin Shipping asked worriedly when she saw the strange expression on Zhuowen's face. Zhuowen shook his head and said in a low voice, Miss Lin, you can sleep on that bed. I'll sleep on the floor below. Don't leave this cave for the next 3 days. Do you understand? Lin Shipping's beautiful eyes were filled with doubt. Zhuo Wen's serious attitude made her realize that something was wrong. However, she did not ask any further and only nodded her head. Along the way, Lin Shipping had thoroughly witnessed how powerful Zhuo Wen was. In the Bone Halberd tribe, she could only rely on the white-clothed young man in front of her. She knew that Zhuowen wouldn't harm her. Zhuowen took out 50 middle-grade beast bones and arranged them at the entrance of the cave to set up a powerful defense array. Behind the defense array, Zhuowen took out another 50 middle-grade beast bones and set up a trap and kill array. Zhuowen set up the trap and kill array very carefully. After an hour, he set up a level 5 trap and kill array. Such a trap and kill array was considered very powerful in the bone world. If anyone dared to break into this trap and kill array, Zhuowen believed that very few people could get out alive. I'll go out for a while. You stay here and wait for me to come back, Zhuowen told Lin Shipping. Then, he opened the array and left the cave. Walking out of the cave, Zhuowen walked casually on the streets of the Bone Halberd tribe. Occasionally, he would see something that he liked on the street. He would haggle for a while and finally take out beast bones to buy the item with a painful expression. Just like that, Zhuowen strolled on the streets for almost half a day. Finally, he came to the entrance of an alley. His eyes were gloomy to the extreme. Is it really an illusion array? And the level of this illusion array is very high. Even I didn't notice it at first. Zhuowen walked into the alley casually, but his heart gradually sank. In fact, when he entered the Bone Halberd tribe, he had already noticed that something was wrong. Because, in his opinion, the expressions of the people on the streets of the Bone Halberd tribe were too peaceful. There wasn't even the slightest hint of hostility. Logically speaking, in such a perilous skeleton world, it was impossible for the people who lived here to not have any hostility. Previously, he was only guessing. Later, when he came out alone and pretended to be shopping, he carefully observed everyone on the street. He knew that his guess was basically correct. With his observation skills, he instantly discovered that the smiles of the people on the street were almost exactly the same. Of course, this kind of smile would not be discovered if one did not observe carefully. Most people would not pay special attention to other people's smiles. After all, a smile was the easiest way to numb others and give others a good impression. Who would care if your smile was the same? Although Zhuowen knew that this was an illusion array, he looked around. Other than the smiles on the faces of the people on the street, he really couldn't find anything suspicious. Everything was too real. Zhuowen pretended to be strolling on the street for a while. When he didn't find anything, he returned home. At the entrance of a deep alley, 2 figures crossed their arms and leaned against the wall on both sides. If Zhuowen was here, he would naturally recognize these 2 people. Weren't they the girl in the blood-red dress, Yu Xiaohui, and Elder Dao, who was holding the bone staff? Did this kid discover something? Old Dao frowned slightly and asked. Yu Xiaohui's beautiful eyes flashed with scarlet light. She shook her head and said uncertainly, I'm not sure. This person was just casually strolling. I couldn't find anything suspicious. Elder Dao nodded. He did not find anything suspicious, but he felt that Zhuowen might have noticed something. Elder Dao, why did father suddenly pay so much attention to this person? Could it be that this person has some secret? Even the 9-cycle samsara formation was activated. This is unbelievable. Yu Xiaohui frowned and said. Elder Dao's eyes flickered as he smiled bitterly. I'm not too sure either. I heard that this person is wanted by the chief's old friend. As for why he would mobilize so many people, I'm also quite puzzled. After returning to the cave, Zhuowen stayed in the cave for 3 days. Lin Shipping, on the other hand, stayed in the cave except for going out to purchase supplies. 3 days later, there was a knock on the door of the cave. Zhuowen opened the array and saw Yu Xiaohui's smiling face. "Miss Yu, what's the matter?" Zhuowen asked with a flicker in his eyes. Yu Xiaohui smiled and said, "The chief wants to see you. Are you going?" Zhuowen said without hesitation, "Yes." Lin Shipping wanted to say something, but after seeing Zhuowen's eyes, she swallowed her words. She knew that Zhuowen wouldn't act rashly. "Then come with me. Miss Lin, wait at home." The smile in Yu Xiaohui's eyes grew wider. She spread her jade-like hands forward and made an inviting gesture. Zhuowen instructed Lin Shipping and followed Yu Xiaohui out of the cave. Although Zhuowen was puzzled that the chief suddenly wanted to see him, he knew that he couldn't refuse this invitation. His purpose in coming to the Bone Halberd tribe was for the corpse path to heaven. The corpse path to heaven was under the control of the Bone Halberd tribe's chieftain, Wu Ling. Therefore, if he wanted to enter the corpse path to heaven, he had to come into contact with the chieftain. Of course, Zhuowen didn't think that his performance was special, but the chief wanted to see him. This made Zhuowen smell something unusual. Brother Zhuo, you must be wondering why the chief suddenly wants to see you, right?" Yu Xiaohui walked in front and said casually. Zhuowen didn't answer. Obviously, he was waiting for Yu Xiaohui to continue. "Actually, it's like this. When old Dao was at the entrance of the valley, he used his bone staff to check the two of you. He found that the two of you actually had more than 500 mid-tier beast bones. Such a large number of mid-tier beast bones is really rare." Yu Xiaohui continued, "Normally, only the big tribes in the Bone Realm can take out so many beast bones, but you only have 2 people and you can take out so many beast bones. So the chief thinks you are extraordinary, so he wants to meet you." Zhuowen laughed and showed a flattered expression. He cupped his hands and said, "Then Zhuowen is really honored. It seems that this matter can't be hidden from the Bone Halberd tribe. Actually, it's like this. Naturally, these beast bones don't belong to me alone. My friend and I happened to encounter 2 large tribes fighting. We took advantage of the time when the 2 tribes were fighting and secretly stole the beast bones from the 2 tribes. That's why there are so many of them." Yu Xiaohui's beautiful eyes revealed a look of understanding. She smiled tenderly and said, "Then your luck is really not ordinary. Generally, big tribes rarely fight with each other. Unexpectedly, you encountered one and even picked up a loophole." Chapter 2187. Sai Ling. Yu Xiaohui nodded and didn't ask any more questions. She just focused on leading the way. Zhuowen's heart gradually became gloomy. From Yu Xiaohui's tone, he could tell that she didn't care about his opinion at all. Then, the 2 of them were silent along the way. The atmosphere was quite oppressive. Suddenly, Yu Xiaohui stopped in front of a huge skull cave in the center of the Bone Halberd tribe. The skull cave covered a large area. From its size, it could be seen that this skull cave was made up of several giant skulls. Around the cave, there were several teams of guards patrolling. It looked very strict. "Master Yu." When Yu Xiaohui walked past, the patrolling guards all bowed respectfully. It could be seen that Yu Xiaohui's position in the Bone Halberd tribe wasn't low. Yu Xiaohui was expressionless. She came to the entrance of the cave and knocked on the bone wall. The restriction at the entrance of the cave slowly disappeared. "Let's go in." Yu Xiaohui turned around and smiled at Zhuowen. Zhuowen's eyes twinkled. He nodded and the 2 of them entered the cave one after the other. The inside of this skull cave was extremely large. Bonfires were lit all around, making the dark environment extremely bright. At the end of the bonfires, there was a carpet piled with many skulls. The carpet was quite long and stretched to the deepest part of the cave. Zhuowen saw that there was a huge throne made of bones in the depths of the cave. An old man sat on the throne, looking down at Zhuowen and Yu Xiaohui. The old man was wearing a ferocious armor made of bones. On his head, there was a skull of a strange beast. There were several bone knives at his waist, shining with cold light. His eyes were like torches, and he had a dignified temperament. Zhuowen knew that the old man should be the chief of the Bone Halberd tribe. "Sai Ling chief, I have brought Zhuowen here. Yu Xiaohui bowed and said respectfully. Sai Ling nodded. Soon after, he looked at Zhuo Wen and said with a smile, very good. I can see that you're quite young, but you're actually able to possess more than 500 mid-tier beast bones. You must be extraordinary. Can you tell me how you obtained so many beast bones? The undead spirit looked amiable, but Zhuowen sneered in his heart. This undead spirit was trying to trick him. However, Zhuowen had already prepared an excuse. He repeated what he had said to Yu Xiaohui earlier. The dead soul nodded, as if he didn't doubt Zhuowen's words at all. He just sighed and said, you were lucky enough to encounter the conflict between the two tribes. Moreover, you were able to take advantage of the conflict between the two tribes and steal all the beast bones of the two tribes. You must be extraordinary. How about this? I think you are also a talent. Are you interested in becoming my personal guard? Before Zhuowen could speak, Yu Xiaohui beside him said in surprise, Brother Zhuo, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Chief has never recruited a personal guard. You must seize this opportunity. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy, but he shook his head and said, thank you for your kindness, Chief. Actually, I didn't come to the Bone Halberd tribe today to join you. The dead soul squinted and said indifferently, oh? Then why did you come here? The Corpse Heaven Road. I have crazy respect for the king of the bone world. I want to go to the Corpse Heaven Road to see that king, Zhuowen said in a low voice. Yu Xiaohui, who was standing next to Zhuowen, suddenly kept quiet out of fear. She looked at Zhuowen strangely. The Corpse Heaven Road was the forbidden area of the Bone Halberd tribe. This was known to all. Moreover, the Corpse Heaven Road had been controlled by Chief Sai Ling of the Bone Halberd tribe for so many years. Except for the dead soul, no one else had ever entered the Corpse Heaven Road. It wasn't that other people didn't want to enter, but that they couldn't get the permission of the dead soul. In Yu Xiaohui's view, Zhuowen's proposal was simply a waste of breath, and it would even anger the dead soul. However, to Yu Xiaohui's surprise, the dead soul just smiled and said without the slightest anger, you want to enter the Corpse Heaven Road? You should know that the Corpse Heaven Road is very dangerous. There won't be any good results if you go in. Zhuowen didn't say anything and just looked at the dead soul silently. The smile on the dead soul's face became wider. He nodded and said, if you really want to enter the Corpse Heaven Road, then I can agree to your request. Yu Xiaohui was dumbfounded. When did their chief become so easy to talk to? He actually agreed to let Zhuowen enter the Corpse Heaven Road so easily. Zhuowen was also a little surprised. He had heard a little about the Corpse Heaven Road. He knew that the Corpse Heaven Road was the forbidden area of the Bone Halberd tribe. Since it was a forbidden area, then it was definitely impossible for people to casually enter. However, this undead spirit had agreed too readily. I think Chief has a condition, right? Zhuowen said in a deep voice. However, the dead soul laughed and said, you're right. The Corpse Heaven Road is the forbidden area of the Bone Halberd tribe. Not just anyone can enter. Actually, the condition is very simple. As he spoke, the dead soul took out a dim yellow parchment from the gap under the throne and threw it to Zhuowen. Zhuowen opened it and found that the map was winding like a mountain road. It was extremely complicated, and there weren't even any markings inside. On the back of the map, there was a strange flower drawn. This flower was about the size of 3 palms, and these petals were not normal petals, but the heads of babies. Each head was only about half the size of a palm, and there were a total of 7 such petals. As for the branches below the flower, they were segmented like white spines. This map records a place called the Myriad Head Cave in the middle of the Corpse Heaven Road. In this Myriad Head Cave, there is something called the 7-headed bone flower. I need you to enter the Myriad Head Cave and retrieve the 7-headed bone flower. The dead soul said indifferently. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and said, this Myriad Head Cave should be very dangerous, right? Zhuowen knew that since the chief didn't go in himself and instead let him in, this Myriad Head Cave was definitely not a good place. The Corpse Heaven Road is not a good place. If you feel that my condition is inappropriate, you don't have to agree. I won't force you. The dead soul leaned on the throne and said unhurriedly. Zhuowen frowned. In fact, With his current strength, he wasn't particularly worried about entering the corpse heaven road. However, it was impossible for him to agree immediately. After all, if he agreed too quickly, it would easily arouse the dead soul's suspicion. After pretending to be conflicted for a long time, Zhuowen said cautiously, "Then do you want to send some people to me? Since the corpse heaven road is so dangerous, it might be difficult for me to reach the Myriad Head Cave by myself." "Don't worry, I was the one who asked you to enter the Myriad Head Cave, so I will naturally send people over. However, after passing through the Myriad Head Cave, my people will take the things I want and return the way they came. If you want to pass through the corpse heaven road, you can only rely on yourself." The dead soul said indifferently. "Sure." Zhuowen let out a light breath, his eyes revealing a look of relief. The dead soul nodded slightly in his heart, but did not suspect anything. The opening of the corpse heaven road requires the opening of the altar. Come back to me in 3 days. At that time, I will open the corpse heaven road, and I will arrange for the people. Now, you can leave. The dead soul waved his hand and ordered him to leave. Zhuowen naturally didn't plan to stay any longer. He had already achieved his goal. Chapter 2188. 10,000 Heads Cave. 3 days later, Zhuowen came to Undead's cave as promised. After waiting outside for a while, he saw Undead leading a group of people out. "Let's go. To open the corpse path, we need to communicate with King first. Come with me." After Undead said this, he led the way to the east, where there was an incomparably huge square. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. Before he left the cave today, he had already instructed Lin Shipping not to leave the cave before he returned. At the same time, he had set up a powerful defensive formation and a death trap array at the entrance of the cave. In his opinion, there shouldn't be anyone in the Bone Halberd tribe who could break through the formation he had set up at the entrance of the cave. The reason why he was so cautious was mainly because he couldn't see through the Bone Halberd tribe and its chief, Undead. The square was surrounded by bone pillars, and the central bone pillar was the thickest. On the surface of the bone pillar, there were strange patterns carved on it, making it look exceptionally strange. The square was very deserted. There was only Undead, his group, Zhuowen, and Yu Xiaohui's group with Zhuowen. "Zhuowen, these are the people I arranged to enter the corpse path with you. They will escort you to the 10,000 Heads Cave." Undead stood in front of the central bone pillar and turned around to look at Zhuowen, then pointed at the 9 people beside him. These 9 people were very young. Their upper bodies were bare, and they held bone swords, bone blades, and other weapons in their hands. However, Zhuowen keenly sensed that these 9 people's eyes were lifeless. Although they hid it very well, he could still see it with a single glance. The 9 people used the weapons in their hands to cut open a wound on their left palm. Blood slowly flowed out, and the 9 people came to the central bone pillar one by one, pressing their blood-stained left hand on the surface of the bone pillar. "Brother Zhuo, little brother Zhuo, this is a necessary step to enter the corpse path. You are no exception." Yu Xiaohui, who was standing beside Zhuowen, explained when she saw Zhuowen frown. She then handed a bone dagger to Zhuowen. Zhuowen's gaze flickered, and he could only follow the actions of those 9 people. He cut open his left hand, and then suddenly pressed his left hand onto the surface of the bone pillar, leaving his handprint on it. However, when Zhuowen's left hand came into contact with the bone pillar, his heart sank. This was because he clearly discovered that a mark had been deeply imprinted on his left hand. If he could use his divine sense, it wouldn't be difficult for him to get rid of this imprint, but now that he couldn't use his divine sense, even if he knew that the bone pillar had left an imprint on his body, it wouldn't help. Although Zhuowen had discovered this imprint, his expression did not change. Instead, he slowly retreated and calmly looked at the undead spirit. "Right now, I want to contact the great and unparalleled king. All of you, take 10 steps back." The undead spirit said. Zhuowen and the others did as they were told. Immediately after, the undead spirit held the bone staff with both hands and chanted something. Immediately, the blood-red handprint on the surface of the bone pillar started to be absorbed by the bone pillar. Then, Zhuowen discovered that his heart felt as if it was being pinched by a large hand, and he actually felt a little uncomfortable. The undead knelt on one knee on the ground, his eyes filled with piety. Not long after, Zhuowen was surprised to discover that the bone pillar started to break apart, and then it started to reassemble in midair, forming a rather spacious bone ladder. At the same time, the bone pillars around the plaza also shattered and condensed on the central bone ladder. Then, the bone ladder grew taller, and actually extended all the way to a solid rock wall in front of them. The rock wall also exploded into a passageway. This passageway was incomparably deep and bottomless. Let's go up. On the other side of this cliff is the corpse heavenly road. The undead spirit put away the bone staff and said indifferently. Zhuowen hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he still stepped onto the bone ladder. As for the 9 people chosen by the undead spirit, they obediently followed behind Zhuowen. Remember to go to the Myriad Head Cave and obtain the 7-headed bone flower. The undead spirit said indifferently. Zhuowen nodded, and continued to climb up the bone ladder, quickly entering the rock wall. After Zhuowen entered, the undead spirit's eyes slowly narrowed, and the corner of his mouth revealed a trace of coldness. At the same time, a slender figure walked over from the other side of the plaza. When this figure walked in, he discovered that it was an old man wearing a long robe. This old man looked like an immortal, but the robe on his body had some holes, making him look slightly comical. That Zhuowen has already entered the corpse heavenly road. Changsheng, what do you plan to do next? The undead spirit looked at the old man and laughed. If Zhuowen was here, he would definitely recognize this old man. Wasn't he Chen Changsheng from the Heaven and Earth sect who entered the spatial fault before him? Chen Changsheng looked at the undead spirit and laughed. Master, this is just a clown. In this corpse world, you are the king. Who can escape from your palm? It's just that back then, we were looking for you, thinking that I was dead. The undead spirit's lips curled up. Back then, I didn't have much time left, and at that time, I also knew that my cultivation could only reach the void sky 8 steps in this lifetime. There was no need to think about reaching the void sky 9 steps at all, so in order to survive, I could only try my best. And in this spatial fault, it didn't disappoint me. In this corpse world, I suppressed the king and seized the vitality from his body, so this old man can live until now. Now, Chen Xuanji is dead. The only one who is still alive is the undead spirit. Chen Changsheng looked at the undead spirit in front of him with a complicated expression. When he fell into the corpse world, he happened to fall outside the Bone Halberd tribe and was later brought into the tribe by Yu Xiaohui. The moment he saw the chief of the Bone Halberd tribe, Chen Changsheng recognized this person. Wasn't he the previous ancestor of the Heaven and Earth sect, Chen Xuanji? He was also Chen Changsheng's master. Millions of years ago, Chen Xuanji suddenly left the Heaven and Earth sect and his whereabouts were unknown. But now, Chen Xuanji actually entered the corpse world in the spatial fault and lived until now. And Chen Xuanji inadvertently learned about the power of faith in the corpse world. At the beginning, he deliberately revealed that the corpse world had a supreme king, so that all the cultivators in the corpse world would believe in that king. And Chen Xuanji relied on the sacrificial altar of the Bone Halberd tribe to collect the power of faith, which became his new power. Relying on the power of faith, Chen Xuanji suppressed the king of the corpse world. Of course, Chen Xuanji didn't see the true face of the king, but he knew that the king should be seriously injured, and the Bone Halberd tribe wasn't established randomly. Chapter 2189. 7-headed bone flower. With Chen Xuanji's cunning, he naturally guessed that the target of this sealed land must be the king of the bone world. Thus, Chen Xuanji painstakingly set up the 9-cycle reincarnation array here with his supreme level of array Dao. And this 9-cycle reincarnation array was not as simple as an illusion array, it was just a smokescreen. The true purpose of this 9-cycle reincarnation array was to combine with the sealed land here and extract the life force of the king inside the sealed land. Chen Xuanji originally did not have much lifespan left, but by absorbing the life force of the king extracted by the 9-cycle reincarnation array, his own lifespan was constantly increasing, and he had lived until now. Now, Chen Xuanji was relying on the power of faith and the life force of the king. In another sense, he was the true king of this place, and his strength was enough to destroy any cultivator in the bone world. Master, what kind of existence is the king? Chen Changsheng asked curiously. Undead shook her head and said, that king is trapped in the sealed area, and it's said that only by passing through the heavenly corpse path can one reach the interior of the sealed area. However, with my current strength, I can still reach the end of the heavenly corpse path, so I don't know exactly what that king is. Chen Changsheng was quite surprised. Obviously, he did not expect that even Sai Ling did not know what the king was. Master, that Zhuowen and I have a death feud, you can't let him die so easily, Chen Changsheng said in a deep voice. Sai Ling laughed and said, don't worry, in this bone world, divine sense and divine power cannot be used. That Zhuowen is at most stronger than an ordinary person, and the 9 people I sent can each fight against 100 people. After Zhuowen enters the 1,000-head cave and obtains the 7-headed bone flower, he will be tied up and brought back, and you can do whatever you want with her. Chen Changsheng asked in surprise, Master, didn't you say that the person who plucked the 7-headed bone flower would become an undead within 2 hours of plucking the flower? That Zhuowen will definitely die, so why tie him up and bring him back? However, the undead spirit said indifferently, didn't you say before that this child has a clone? Even if the main body dies, doesn't he still have a clone? I'll let you vent your anger on my clone then. Chen Changsheng cupped his fists and smiled, thank you, Master. Also, I wonder if Master has found Fu Yuzi. The undead said indifferently, that Fu Yuz is said to have died in a small tribe in the south. You newcomers are usually proud and arrogant, so you definitely can't stand the contempt and disdain of others. That Fu Yuz probably didn't recognize his own position, so he clashed with others and was killed by others. Chen Changsheng wiped away the cold sweat on his forehead. Although he and Fu Yuz were both big shots in the outside world, their strength was unparalleled. However, the bone world was too strange. It could actually restrain their divine power and shield their divine consciousness. Here, no matter how impressive or powerful you were in the outside world, everything was equal here. Fu Yuz could be considered as unlucky. He was a great ancestor of the first generation, but he actually got into a conflict with a nobody in the bone world and was not killed. If this matter was spread to the outside world, he would become a laughingstock. At the same time, Chen Changsheng also rejoiced at his own luck. If he had not met the undead beforehand, it was very likely that he would have ended up in the same state as Fu Yuz. Zhuowen shuttled through the tunnel for more than an hour and finally walked out. On the other side of the tunnel was a world of bones. What appeared in front of him were piles of bones, which piled up into a few small hills. At the front of these bones was a huge abyss, and the front of the abyss was shrouded in clouds and mist. It was impossible to see what was on the other side. Master Zhuo, let's continue forward. Although the 1,000-head cave is not far from here, there are many dangers along the way. We will protect you, so you can go ahead without worry. The 9 people following behind Zhuowen immediately dispersed and scattered around Zhuowen. They were always vigilant of the possible dangers around them. Zhuowen sneered in his heart. Although he did not know why the undead sent these 9 people, he knew that the undead did not have good intentions. Naturally, Zhuowen was not stupid enough to say it out loud. Instead, he took out the parchment map and looked at it while walking forward according to the directions on the map. On both sides of the abyss, there were several bone suspension bridges. Although the suspension bridges were not very stable, they were not a big problem for Zhuowen and the others. After crossing the suspension bridges, they arrived at another world of bones. After going through 3 or 4 worlds of bones, they finally stopped at the 5th world of bones. Looks like the 1,000-head cave is here. Zhuowen followed the markings on the map and stopped at the center of the 5th world of bones. On the left side of the continent filled with bones, there was an incomparably huge cave. This cave was made up of countless skulls. These skulls belonged to both humans and beasts. Master Zhuo, only you can enter the 1,000-head cave. We will wait outside. After you finish the 7-head bone flower, you can come out and hand it over to us. You can continue forward, but we need to return to report. Among the 9 people, a man wielding a saber said respectfully to Zhuowen. Zhuowen nodded and ignored the 9 people. Instead, He slowly walked into the 1,000-head cave. Zhuowen had never heard of the 7-head bone flower before. It was obviously a divine medicine unique to the bone world. Previously, he had asked the undead, and the latter had said that the 7-head bone flower had the effect of reviving the dead. Of course, this so-called dead person had to consume the 7-head bone flower within 2 hours of death. After 2 hours, even the 7-head bone flower would not bring the dead back to life. Without a doubt, this divine medicine was absolutely heaven-defying. Although the undead did not say what level of divine medicine the 7-head bone flower was, Zhuowen could imagine that it was definitely a level 9 divine medicine. Moreover, it was even more precious than the level 9 divine medicines he had obtained in the Luotian Palace. In this world, was there anything more important than life? The effect of reviving the dead was simply too heaven-defying. Although it could only be revived within 2 hours of death, it was already extremely heaven-defying. However, Zhuowen knew that the undead did not have any good intentions, so he had to be extra careful when entering the 1,000-head cave. Inside the 1,000-head cave, there was complete silence. It was so quiet that it was terrifying. The dark cave always gave people a feeling of infinite fear. Zhuowen took out the luminous stone that he had prepared and used it as a light as he continued to go deeper into the 1,000-head cave. How strange. Isn't this 1,000-head cave too quiet? Didn't the undead say that the corpse path to heaven was full of dangers? I've been here for so long, but I haven't even seen a single bird feather. Zhuowen muttered to himself. It was indeed as he had said. During the time they had been in the corpse path to heaven, their journey had been too smooth. There had been no danger at all. However, the more it was like this, the more vigilant Zhuowen became. After walking for about an hour, Zhuowen finally went deep into the cave. He saw that in the deepest part of the cave, there was a small circular pool. This small pool was only about 10 feet wide, and the pool water was pitch black. The pool was open air, so the light from outside shone in, making it look quite bright. Chapter 2190. Death Chi. The flower had 7 petals, and each of the 7 petals was a baby's head with different expressions. Each head was half the size of a palm. Zhuowen knew that this strange flower was the 7-headed bone flower. When Zhuowen approached the pool, the 7-headed bone flowers in the center of the pool cast their gazes on Zhuowen. 7 pairs of eyes stared straight at Zhuowen, making Zhuowen's hair stand on end. Moreover, Zhuowen noticed that the 7 babies' eyes were emitting a dangerous light of greed. It was as if Zhuowen was the prey in the eyes of these 7 infant heads. Zhuowen stopped in his tracks, his eyes flickering. This 7-headed bone flower was too strange. Zhuowen couldn't make up his mind. That dead spirit suddenly asked me to enter the myriad-head cave to pick this 7-headed bone flower. There must be a problem. Zhuowen muttered to himself. Although he could refuse to pick the 7-headed bone flower, he knew very well that the 9 people outside the myriad-head cave would definitely make a move against him. Zhuowen had secretly observed those 9 people. They were definitely experts among experts in the bone world. If Zhuowen lost all of his divine power, facing those 9 people would be the same as courting death. However, Zhuowen didn't care about those 9 people. Zhuowen waved his sleeve, summoning the black-robed Zhuowen. The black-robed Zhuowen's right hand condensed the energy of extreme lightning in his palm, turning into a giant lightning hand that grabbed at the 7-headed bone flower in the middle of the pool. However, the instant the enormous hand formed by the extreme lightning energy reached the pond suddenly started to boil and soared into the sky. The enormous lightning hand was actually dispersed by the boiling water. A fishy stench filled the air as the water in the pool surged. Zhuowen immediately shielded his sense of smell. The stench was highly toxic. The moment he came into contact with the smell, he had already discovered that the smell was highly corrosive. Zhuowen's original body was hiding behind the black-clothed Zhuowen, relying on the black-clothed Zhuowen's extreme thunder energy to disperse the stench that permeated the air. Zhuowen's expression was ugly. He knew very well that if he were to enter the pool without thinking, he would be doomed. Just the stench alone was enough to poison him, not to mention the terrifying pool water. The black-clothed Zhuowen leaped into the air. Lightning and fire energies intertwined around his body, forming a lightning and fire domain-like defense as he rushed to the center of the pool. Crash! The pool water was like a troublesome water python, surging up and coiling around Zhuowen's entire body. However, the lightning and fire energies surrounding the black-clothed Zhuowen were like the sharpest blades in the world. The surging pool water was basically annihilated by the lightning and fire energies. When he reached the center of the pool, the 7 heads of the 7-headed bone flower all glared at Zhuowen, their eyes emitting a scarlet light. Immediately after, Zhuowen felt the gravity around him increase by hundreds or thousands of times, causing him to involuntarily fall into the pool water. Zhuowen knew very well that this strange pool water absolutely could not be touched. He immediately used his innate divine ability, Purgatory, and used its energy to resist the terrifying gravity of the pool water. While Purgatory blocked the gravity of the pool water, Zhuowen reached out with his right hand. His right hand was wrapped in an endless amount of lightning and fire energy, and he grabbed the root of the 7-headed bone flower. Roar! Roar! Strange roars came from the 7 heads of the 7-headed bone flower. Soon after, Zhuowen discovered that a strange death aura was actually coming from the inside of the 7-headed bone flower. It flowed along his arm and invaded his body. Zhuowen was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. He quickly put away the 7-headed bone flower and left the pool. However, his face was extremely gloomy because the death aura from the 7-headed bone flower was exceptionally difficult to deal with. At this moment, it was spreading along his 8 extraordinary meridians and spreading to his entire body. He knew very well that once this death aura spread to his entire body, his vitality would be completely devoured by this death aura. The energy used to strengthen the death aura would eventually be sucked dry of his vitality, and he would die. In order to pluck this 7-headed bone flower, one of us must be sacrificed. That undead's methods are really sinister. Zhuowen's heart sank to the bottom. Anyone who came into contact with this death aura would definitely die without a burial place. However, Devour's vitality was extremely strong, and he was able to control the death aura in his right arm in time. At the same time, Zhuowen used the power of the array to completely seal the connection between his right arm and his body. At this moment, the black-clothed Zhuowen's right arm was withering at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the end, it had turned into a shriveled, bony state. That's not right. This 7-headed bone flower is so dangerous. I might die before I even get close to it. Why is that undead so confident that I can obtain this 7-headed bone flower? Does he know that I have a doppelganger? Zhuowen thought back to the confident expression on the undead spirit's face before he left. Now that he thought about it, the undead spirit was too confident that Zhuowen would be able to obtain the 7-headed bone flower. Throwing away the random thoughts in his mind, Zhuowen's eyes flickered. Now that the black-clothed Zhuowen's right arm had been invaded by the death aura, it was equivalent to being completely crippled. Naturally, the black-clothed Zhuowen's strength had also been greatly weakened. Of course, this was not the main point. What Zhuowen was struggling with right now was how to get rid of the death aura in his right arm. Just now, he had tried all the methods on the black-clothed Zhuowen's body, but none of them could get rid of the death aura. Some methods even increased the power of the death aura, which scared Zhuowen so much that he didn't dare to try again. This isn't an ordinary death aura at all. Zhuowen sighed softly and carefully put away the 7-headed bone flower. After plucking the 7-headed bone flower, it had calmed down a lot. At this moment, the 7 infant heads were drooping, listless. I've been tricked by the undead. Since that's the case, I can't let go of this 7-headed bone flower. Zhuowen's eyes were dark. In order to pluck the 7-headed bone flower, his doppelganger's right arm had been crippled. Moreover, if he hadn't been vigilant and let his main body pluck the 7-headed bone flower, his main body might have fallen. After paying such a huge price, if Zhuowen still gave up the 7-headed bone flower, then he would be a fool. Zhuowen would be willing to give it up. Zhuowen made up his mind. He would definitely not reveal the 7-headed bone flower. He planned to hide this miraculous medicine that could revive the dead and regrow flesh and bones. After the black-clothed Zhuowen entered the Kanglan secret realm, Zhuowen hid the seven-headed bone flower and walked out of the myriad head cave. Because things from the bone world couldn't be stored in the Kanglan secret realm or the inner world, unless they were completely refined. Right now, Zhuowen didn't have the time to refine it, so he could only hide it on his body. After leaving the entrance of the myriad head cave, Zhuowen found that the 9 people were still guarding the entrance. Perhaps because they saw Zhuowen come out, the man in the lead held a bone blade and sized up Zhuowen. He said indifferently, "Did you get the seven-headed bone flower?" Zhuowen frowned slightly. This person's attitude made him very unhappy. He replied indifferently, "The seven-headed bone flower is too dangerous, so I didn't dare to take the risk. That's why I didn't pick it." "You didn't pick it. This is the chief's request. Do you dare to disobey?" You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.